We have agenda item number 5, comprehensive sign plan, DEV 2014-055, Volusia Mall.
Staff, please.
Thank you, Dennis Morozak, planner with the City of Daytona Beach. The next item is a request by Rob Merrill, Cobco, on behalf of Jamie Flegel, Volusia Mall, and CBL and Associates to approve a resolution for a comprehensive sign plan for the Volusia Mall. To give you an idea, everybody is, I'm sure, quite familiar with where the mall is located. I'm sure it'll, there you go. It's right along ISB, just across the street from the Speedway, east of Ville, France. The purpose of a comprehensive sign plan is to identify all of the existing proposed signs on the property. Approval of the concurrent LDC text amendment that you were just recommending approval for is required for this particular application to go through. As far as the comprehensive sign plan itself, there are 4 types of signs that have been identified in the comprehensive sign plan. I did provide you a copy of the CSP in your planning board packet. Sign types include identification signs, mall directory and informational signs, graphic and decor signs, and regulation signs. I've got a location map of the proposed signs for the which is located also in the CSP. And I want to identify just a few of the signs for you. The area flashing over on the screen right now, that is the location of the main primary ID sign for the mall. That is the sign that would have the EMC included with it. Give you a shot. There you go. There's the proposed EMC. This is a 35-foot tall sign with the EMC located in the center of the sign. Additional signs that are being proposed, we have the secondary ID signs. These are smaller 8-foot signs that are located around the perimeter of the property along Bill France, ISP, and Jimmy Ann. I'll give you a look of that sign. It's a kind of a typical monument sign, but I don't want to say typical. It's very good looking. Okay, and then the another sign types, we have directional informational signs. These are internal to the parking and roadway network within the mall. These assist vehicles and pedestrians to get around the mall area. Then we have some graphic and decor signs. These are provided at the mall common area entrances. And then we have some additional graphics and decor signs that are also detailed in your packet. So as far as a recommendation, the application request is tentatively scheduled to be heard or reviewed by the City Commission at the August 20th City Commission meeting. I believe I said it was going to be August 6th and August 20th. This is a resolution, so it would just be required to go to one hearing of the City Commission, which would be the second hearing of the LDC text amendment that we just heard. Based on staff analysis and review, the request for approval of the comprehensive sign plan for Volusia Mall will be in compliance with the LDC and the comprehensive plan if approved by action of the City Commission and pending approval of the concurrent application to amend the Land Development Code. A majority vote of the Planning Board members present and voting is required for recommendation of approval to the City Commission. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Any questions of staff?
Just one point for clarification. In the site plans, you have part is shaded and part is not, but it's a whole parcel is outlined. And I just wanted to understand, are we addressing the whole parcel?
The different shadings actually are the ownership of the mall. You'll see the area that's shaded in, that is the actual mall ownership. There are separate ownerships regarding some of the out parcels and some of the main tenants. So their ownership lines are a little bit different. What you're going to see is signs that are currently on the buildings, the JCPenney, the Sears. They're not included in this comprehensive sign plan. They go through the standard process through the city, and their signs are approved as part of the BR2 zoning. So whatever the BR2 zoning, which is a shopping center zoning, whatever that zoning would permit for signage, that's what they would have to comply with. And that's what they're currently complying with, and that's what they'll continue to comply with.
But the directory and the signs that are on the right-of-way, et cetera, they are governed by this?
They are governed by this, yes.
Right, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll hear from the applicant, please.
Mr. Chairman, board members, again, Rob Merrill with Cobb Cole, 149 South Ridgewood, on behalf of CBL and Associates. I asked Chelsea Sims, my associate, to pass out bigger versions in case you guys have the same problem that I do reading the little bitty versions of this sign plan. In case you have any questions about any of the diagrams or the language that's in it, I brought my bigger version too so that I can read it. And I'll mention to you that, as Dennis said, and thank you, Dennis, that was a great presentation. I'm especially envious of the ability to do those flashing blobs on the screen there. I got to figure out how to do that. Very effective. You've seen several of these. We really started with the concept of the comprehensive sign plan. I want to say it was 4 or 5 years ago with the Speedway. Understanding that the Speedway was a very unique use as it relates to signage and many other things, we decided that the best way to deal with signage for the Speedway was not to rewrite your code, but to write our own PUD for signs, if you will. And that was the genesis of the concept of the comprehensive sign plan. You all remember it. I think many of you were here, and we showed that to you. And then we did the same thing for Halifax Medical Center. You might remember we've done it for Bethune-Cookman University. We've done it for Embry-Riddle University, and you guys have seen all those plans. And so a lot of the template and the structure of this comes from what we've already seen. And we've basically, for each of these different types of users, we've allowed them to come in and organize their thoughts about signage, have some consistency in the design. And so really from an aesthetic standpoint, which is one of the biggest reasons we regulate signs, so they look nice, it's really been an improvement, I think, both in terms of the future planning for signs as well as the inventory of the types of signs that they need to direct people around their properties and to succeed as businesses to the extent that they are businesses. So I think a lot of this is repetitive of things that you've seen before, so I'm not going to go through it page by page. I will mention to you again that this is a very comprehensive and thorough plan for signage for this mall that's being remodeled after 40-some years of existence, and they've gone to great lengths to hire the best people to do this, and they believe this is going to be helpful to their next 40 years. So I encourage you to support us, and be happy to answer any questions. And again, Alejandra from Huey Design is here, and I think she came a long way, so if you have any questions for her, I'm sure she'd be happy to jump up here and answer them. This is her good work, not mine for the most part.
Rob, I have a question.
Certainly.
On the primary ID monument sign, what exists there now? How tall is it?
There are 2 signs that I believe are in the 20-foot plus range there now, and another one that's real long but low along the frontage. Wayne, am I saying it right? That's correct. Yeah. But they're kind of older designs and ready to be updated.
And why is this one being requested at 35 feet?
I think if we look at the scale of the project, for instance, look at the Auto Mall, it's 54 feet, something like that. We're just trying to get it scaled proportional to the size of the property.
So you can see this from the Auto Mall?
Did you say from the other mall? The Auto Mall? No. This is the only mall we have in the community, so we want people to know where it is. And frankly, there is that balance between having to be an effective sign where people know for sure that's where it is and having them miss it. So.
There are other questions.
Yes, I have a question. On the primary monument sign, will that be in compliance with the current EMC standards with the background, the motions, that kind of stuff?
Everything except the part that we've just recently amended for both the Auto Mall and for Bethune-Cookman and for the Kennel Club, which is they're allowed to show colors, multiple colors, and static design work, as opposed to just 2 colors of text, which, we started off with that, and from the beginning I said, this is not going to look good to everybody. I wasn't holding anything back or pulling any punches. I said, but as soon as we get these things up, we'll be able to show you guys what they look like, and we did, everybody saw it, and I think everybody agrees that, having pictures, as long as they're not moving and distracting,
right.
So this will have that, but it'll meet the standards in terms of the pixels, all the other things. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Rob, my question is almost the same. There was no way we could do that sign, the largest sign, less than the 35 feet? Because when I take into consideration the traffic that's going down 95 in opposition to the rate of speed, in opposition to the rate of speed that's going down ISB, There's a big difference.
Well, part of what's happened since the sign that was there now was built is the rate of speed on ISB has changed dramatically, and the amount of traffic as well. So I think we're trying to change with those times. If you guys, feel differently, that's why we're here.
Yeah.
Certainly the scale. I was out researching at the mall this afternoon, and that's kind of tongue-in-cheek, but the current size.
Oh, you bought a few things, I hope.
So the current size of the large sign seems acceptable, and the scale that's shown with, the person beside it, the 35 feet seems really large. I just want to say the EMC, the electronic messages seems to certainly appropriate along there, but the scale is substantial increase.
I think you almost have to see it on the property. The person standing next to it doesn't really.
I know they don't really stand next to it.
Yeah,
I understand
and
it's
in
just for
fact,
scale.
unfortunately, I don't have a photo simulation. But if you will look and consider the size, the length of this property, and just the mass of it, the 35-foot sign is not going to be hidden, but it's also not going to stand out like a sore thumb, in my opinion. I mean, so this is a subjective thing. I mean, signage always gets down to that. What do you
Right.
think it's going to look like?
Right.
And if you think 35 feet is going to look too big, then that's your opinion. And if I look at it, unfortunately, the person standing next to it, that's all you have to go by on
No,
this
but-
diagram. And I probably failed you by not getting you a better picture of what it would look like if it were out there in front of the mall, because there's a lot of open space, and there always will be in front of this mall. There's going to be a lot more landscaping along the frontage, but those out parcels, that are developed are. A lot of the parking that's there is going to be parking, so it's open spaces. When you got a wide open space, when you put something there, it
Stands out.
needs to stand out, or it needs to fit in terms of the size of what's around it.
Rob, do you know the height of the sign in front of the Speedway?
I think it's in the 50s, 60s, something like that. And I'm almost sure that the one that's permitted in front of the Speedway, for the Speedway and for the One Daytona project, are significantly larger.
That's a question that I had, is along ISB, what else do we have permitted? Those
Those are the two of the larger ones. I can't cite you the size. Can you, Dennis? Do you know off the top of your head? But, the Speedway itself has a comprehensive sign plan. I didn't bring it with me, but it has, of course, several signs, including the main one, which I believe is much bigger. But also, One Daytona has, as part of their PUD approval, a sign plan. So.
Yeah, there's a couple additional large signs on ISB exceeding that, the height. That's the Daytona Plaza has a very tall sign, and then Halifax Hospital also has a very tall sign.
Are they in that 35-foot range?
It's in the 50-something for Halifax, I think.
It might be, yeah, but I would say 35 would be about right for the Daytona Plaza sign.
Okay.
And it's a wide sign, too.
Okay, thank you.
Also, when we're going to the mall, we know where we're going. We go to the mall. But, like signage is so important, especially for the vacationers that are on the beach side, the people that come from other areas that want to go to the mall and not just zone right in on the mall like we do, going. So that's, I think, the reason that they want the larger sign.
And they could very well be 6 lanes over.
I understand.
Well, I
That
think
was the
you've
point I was
made,
going to make. Normally, I would be a little upset with the height of this, but the number of lanes that are involved, I think it's probably necessary.
Could well be, yeah.
it seems like a shame because, actually, I guess my question would be, what kind of vegetation are you going to put out there? Because you certainly have made the mall more noticeable now because you cut down all the trees in front. And of course, now if you're just going to put in low vegetation, that still means we got a big open space that you look at the mall.
Understand. I'm not going to talk to you about palm trees, Bob.
No, I didn't get into palm
but there may very well be some palm trees. We actually have a very elaborate landscape plan that's going through the review process right now. Like I said, I was being a little bit cute about the pine tree thing, but back in the old days, we tried to preserve all the pine trees in the world, but they're lightning rods and they don't look very good, and for the most part, and that's what happened here. This was the old days when that mall was developed, and
But they are vegetation.
they are vegetation. So certainly, if they're removed, they got to be replaced. What happened with the westerly part of the mall? Now, it's not the entire frontage. What's in your mind probably is as you drive west, you're seeing those restaurants, right? Or you wouldn't have seen them before. That's why they weren't there. That's why they wouldn't go there. So when we explained that to the city and we looked at it and we said, this stuff that's in here is not very desirable, we have to replace it. But the replacement of it is going to be done in a comprehensive way rather than just that piece. The whole thing's going to be done. So be patient. It's coming.
Yeah, I guess I
And-
feel bad because I think we've done a reasonably good job on International Speedway Boulevard, and I hate to have it go back to where we were with the big signs sitting out there by themselves.
With no
37
landscaping.
feet
You're-
is terribly big.
You couldn't be more right, Bob. And I can tell you that the next item that I have on the agenda is going to be talking to you about doing an unbelievable landscape job right down the street on ISB, and that's what we expect from people. So that's what's happening here, too. Unfortunately, this has been a little bit of a hodgepodge just because the mall is not in a PUD. And the PUD from the restaurant district is extending over into the mall here in a couple of months. I'm going to be back in front of you talking about that, and we'll be able to talk about things like the landscaping, which is going to be part of that project.
Are there any other questions of the applicant?
It was kind of hard to include landscaping in the sign plan. That's all I can say.
Okay. Does
Thanks.
anybody in the audience like to speak in favor of this issue? Anyone like to speak against? Now, Board, what are your thoughts about cutting it down somewhat on the size of the sign? We are, that's pretty big, 35 feet. Would there be some working room that you might feel more comfortable?
I think after I've learned about the heights and it was brought to my attention about Halifax, which I think is very appropriate, I drive by there daily, and the Speedway, I think it fits into the larger lanes and the speed that we have now. I don't think with the landscaping that it'll be unattractive at all.
Well, my concern always is that we set precedent, and this is what we're doing now. We're going back through this same process that we cut down for a long time, and now we're starting to let it balloon out again. So anyway, whatever the board wants to do, that's fine.
Motion we approve comprehensive sign plan development 2014-055 Volusia Mall.
Second.
The motion is second. Motion. And all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
Item number 6, Planned Commercial Development Rezoning, DEV 2013-125, Tarragona Shops, PCD.
Staff, please.
Thank you. Dennis Mrozek, planner with the City of Daytona Beach. The next item is a request by Rob Merrill, Cobb Coal, on behalf of Paul Held Jr., Speedway Investors, LLC, to rezone property located at 1145 West International Speedway Boulevard from Office Professional, OP, to Planned Commercial Development, PCD, to allow for the development of a 21,036 square foot office and retail center and entering into a PCD agreement. The location of the subject property is again along ISB, just east of Mainland High School. And there's a nice aerial for you showing you the location of the high school and Daytona State College across the street. The land use of the property, you see on the left-hand side is the existing land use, it's office transition. On the right-hand side, you see the proposed land use, that's low-intensity commercial. A couple of months, 2-3 months ago, we've had an application come through the planning board to do a land use change on this property. The item was recommended approval to the City Commission. City Commission transmitted to the state and to VGMC, and that's a sister application to this particular request, and required for this application to do what it's asking to do. The zoning of the property is currently zoned office professional, and the proposed zoning is planned commercial development. As far as Tarragona Shops rezoning, again, there is that pending comp plan amendment. This is going to change the land use to a low-intensity commercial. It will also amend Neighborhood M to allow limited retail. That limited retail would be no more than 50% of the property. The proposal includes 2.47 acres, again, 21,000 plus or minus square feet of office and retail. Again, no more than 50% of that building would be retail. Access to the site would occur from ISB only. There is ingress, egress, 2 points on ISB. Another point, the applicant is going to be required to receive the proper permits from FDOT. At this time, we don't have those. Prior to a site plan approval, they will have to provide the approval from FDOT to have those access points. There's an additional egress point that is proposed at Central, which is a right out only. The applicant did have a neighborhood meeting. I'll let him provide more details in the neighborhood meeting, tell you a little bit about what they discussed. I did put a little bit of a write-up that was provided by the applicant, but in case you want to expand on that. I wanted to show you the existing conditions out there on the site. You see ISB is located at the top, running east-west. To the left is Central. And then you see Cordova, it's toward the bottom of the property. I'm going to drop in the proposed plan, and you'll have an idea of how the project would sit on the property when it's developed. You'll see the building orientation facing ISB. You see the access points, both of them over there on ISB. And then you see the one egress point on Central. Water retention is at the rear of the property. You see some of the landscape that's being proposed. A couple of interesting things going on back here. This section right over here is actually the property line. The Tarragona Shops property line will jog down, over, and back up again. So that's what that's located over there. This is proposed landscaping adjacent to Tarragona at the rear of the property. It's not on Tarragona's property. It's on a neighbor's property. Just for clarification, we would require an authorization from that property owner to have any landscaping on that property, and it would have to be approved by that property owner, which I'm not sure if we have that approval yet from the property owner. It's showing on the plan, but that may need to come off depending on the property owner. And I wanted to get into design waivers because I know we've got quite a few, LDC waivers. I know we have quite a few of these. So I want to kind of go through them one at a time to help you kind of understand what we were looking at. Let's see here. The first one is the design standards for the west wall. Pull that up. That's okay. And I'm not sure if this item had been to the planning board before, but I'm not sure if we had actually discussed this. She's pulling it up right now. The design standards that they're asking for relief from, there is a requirement to offset buildings 3 feet every 30 feet and to offer varying roof lines. What's being proposed by the applicant, you can go ahead and put it on now, that's fine. What's being proposed by the applicant is not meeting that standard. Now I want to pull this picture up because what it's going to do is show you that the rest of the site, the front of the buildings and the other sides of the buildings are meeting the standards of the land development code that are associated with the design standards. So I'll have her get that up and going. That's okay. We'll push on. Another waiver that's being requested is building perimeter landscaping. Landscaping is required by the code to surround the building. This is a retail building. We do this. We have done this in the past for retail buildings. There are pavers that are put in place. Sometimes landscaping doesn't really work well with a lot of people walking back and forth, so the pavers are in place, and the applicant has a plan for some potted plants and to green up some of the walking areas. Oh, thank you. There you go. This is the area that I was referring to. If you take a look, for the people in the audience, I'm pointing to the right of the building on that the side wall. That wall does not meet the requirements. All of the other elevations meet or exceed the requirements of the Land Development Code regarding design standards. Another waiver request is for vehicle landscape islands. There is a requirement that 10% of the paved parking area be landscaped. With all of the measurements that were put in place, it came out to 8.9%, so that's a waiver from the Land Development Code. Minimum landscape yard along scenic thoroughfares. This is a scenic thoroughfare along ISB. It's a requirement for 40 feet of landscape buffer. The applicant has asked for reduction to 20 feet. In its place, he has requested, or his proposal is to reduce the number of trees. However, increase the caliper of the trees that would be provided to come up with a number that would meet the minimum caliper that would normally be required for that portion of the property. Any shrubs, any ground cover would be installed as if it were a 40-foot buffer, having that much material. So that material would be in place. The trees would be less, but they would be larger trees in that area. Another waiver request is the buffer yard and screening. Retail uses, this is a compatibility between uses. Retail uses are required to have a 10-foot landscape buffer and a 6-foot wall. The applicant has proposed, actually the plan doesn't meet that minimum standard along the rear of the property along the single family. The applicant has proposed an additional 15 feet, as I had said, on the other side of the property line for the residential property for an off-site improvement. Again, that would require that property owner approve that. Without that, there would be no landscaping along that portion of the site. Some of these do seem a little bit redundant, but they are different parts of the code. This is a landscape property perimeter. There are requirements for certain property perimeter landscaping. There's a waiver from that. Building setbacks. LDC requires a minimum of 30-foot rear yard setback for office uses that are adjacent to single family. The applicant has requested a reduction of the setback to 10 feet. Building setbacks in PCD zoning districts. In PD districts, there are special setbacks that they have to meet. That's a 25-foot minimum for all buildings. The applicant is, and this is in a portion that he's requested a minimum of 15 feet. It actually should be 10 feet because that's the portion that's the least. Sidewalks. There is a requirement to provide sidewalks along the property perimeter. Along the Cordova, after the neighborhood meeting, the applicant had indicated that the neighbors didn't want the sidewalk in that location. They felt it would require removing trees. They didn't want those trees removed. They also felt that, well, I'll let him speak to that, but that was one of his requests, is to remove the requirement for the sidewalk. He did, he is required then to pay into a sidewalk fund to the city, so so that money could be used someplace else for sidewalks that may be needed. And then the district sign plan. This has to do with the monument signs. I did provide pictures of the monument signs in your packet. The maximum sign area for a monument sign is 120 square feet. Two signs are proposed. You can have 60 square feet per sign. The applicant has proposed 100 square foot signs. Two of them. He exceeds the sign by 40 square feet for each sign. So that's another one of his waivers. Let's see here. This is I wanted to kind of talk about this a little bit. One of the conditions of approval that staff had to do with a egress point off of Central. I did speak with representatives from the city's Public Works Department. We do have a representative from the city's Public Works Department who can address the board if need be. Originally, the thought was that it was going to be creating too many conflict points on Central. I think the Public Works had looked at this. They realized that this is just a right out only, and vehicles are going right to ISB. They don't travel through the neighborhood. The access conflicts would occur, if they were to occur, would be with the buses with Mainland High School. After taking a look at it, I think that they've maybe have changed their mind and thought that maybe there aren't as many conflict points, and maybe it wouldn't be an issue along that portion. Now, I do have somebody from engineering, and they can speak on that, exactly what their thought process was on that. So I just wanted to point that out. As for a staff recommendation, well, I don't think that's right. Staff recommends approval of 2-point-something acres of land generally located east of...
That's not it.
Well, that's not it. We'll get rid of that. Yeah. Let's take a look at the... I'll do this one. The approval of the rezoning request is a policy decision on staff's analysis and the granting of the waiver request. Planning Board review and recommendation, and ultimately City Commission approval. Staff supports the Board's recommendation to the City Commission. The item will be scheduled for the City Commission action pending response from the land use change amendment from VGMC, surrounding communities, and ultimately state reviewing authorities. An affirmative vote of 6 by the Planning Board shall be required to recommend approval to the City Commission. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Are there any questions of the staff, please?
So you have no problem with the egress from on Central?
Yeah, if I may, I'm going to ask Ken Kruger to come up and he can address that specifically and exactly what the reasoning was in that thought process.
It just seemed important to me if they were offering parking areas for students, drop off and pick up, that would be necessary to come out on. Or it could be
To come out on, yes, it would still be able to come out on, and I think the applicant will be able to speak a little bit on what you're talking about. I think he's offered portions of the site of his development for parents who are looking to pick up their kids, so they can be able to park over there in a safe place, and the kids can come over to Mainland, and they, instead of parking on the street, a little bit safer. So, and that, I think that came into consideration also. I should point out that going through this process of review, we've had several reviews on this. There was a time when the central access point was it was a full access point, in, out, left, right, into the neighborhood, onto ISB. It was modified to a right in, right out, so traffic coming from the neighborhood can go right in and then right out. Later on, it was modified to just an egress only. No traffic coming in, only going out to limit the conflict points. But this is Ken Kruger, and he can speak a little bit more on that Central Street access.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Ken Kruger, and I'm a development review engineer, and I work in the Public Works Department. And yes, I sit on the TRT, and we've reviewed this project quite a while. I'm speaking also for Mike Markham, who is our in charge of our supervisor in our traffic department, and we've talked considerably about this. I know Dennis has already stolen most of my speech here about the fact that this was originally a two-way in and out driveway that was proposed on the Central, and as it got massaged finally now to just an exit onto Central for traffic going back out to ISB, that removed most of our concern about that about a driveway being located on Central. And as I understand, there's been some discussion too with the school, and maybe the owner, the developer here, could speak better as to what was discussed with the school. But I think they've removed most of the concern from the Mainland High School about having that driveway there. And if you have any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer you. But that's about what I have to say.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Sure.
Can we hear from the applicant, please?
I have one question
sorry.
of Dennis, if I may. I want to make sure I understand the staff recommendation here.
I'll pull it right off the staff report.
Okay, because I wasn't sure. So you're recommending the granting of each of these waivers, or are you saying it's a policy decision and you're not?
I'm
the
saying
staff
it's-
is not making a recommendation.
We're not making a recommendation on any of the waivers. That's going to be based on the Planning Board's review and ultimately on the City Commission's authority to approve any waiver request. I'm going to read this again just because I had a kind of a wrong slide up there. It says, staff has reviewed the application request to rezone the subject site to PCD rezoning. Should concurrent application submitted for the land use change receive final approval and adoption, and approval of the PCD rezoning request would bring the subject property into compliance with the LDC and comprehensive plan. Approval of the rezoning request is a policy decision based on staff analysis and the granting of the waiver requests, Planning Board review and recommendations, and ultimately City Commission approval. Staff does supports the Board's recommendation to the City Commission, and this is where we had recommended that Central Street egress be removed, but after further review on that, I think that's changed. And I wanted to point out one more thing on that, and it had to do with conflict points, and that was really one of the issues that were generated. A lot of that egress point is going to be used by delivery trucks, garbage trucks. Without that access point, that egress onto Central, you're going to find these trucks that are going to be going through the parking lot to access ISB. So it's going to have to maneuver through the parking area, through the cars that are pulling in and out of the parking spaces, through the pedestrians to get onto ISB. So that creates conflict points. We felt getting them onto the street, I believe, is probably the better of the situations. So.
Are there any other questions of staff?
I have a question.
Yes.
Sure.
So on the ISB side, there is an existing sidewalk, correct?
Yes.
But on the west side, there would not be a sidewalk.
On the south side on Cordova, there will not be a sidewalk. I believe on Central, there is a sidewalk that is
There
proposed.
would be a sidewalk in Central.
I believe that,
Students walking
yes,
in high school would
Yes.
be getting on a sidewalk. Okay, good.
yes.
All right.
Safer.
And he's provided access points, sidewalks, designated sidewalks into the center. So it's a safety issue.
Are there any other questions of staff?
I do. Dennis,
Yes.
the code waivers, we have the option to accept or delete, accept or decline for any of these 10.
Well, I
Is that
think
what
as
you're saying?
a board,
That-
you can make a recommendation to the city commission with all of the waivers, or maybe removing some of the waivers. Ben, if I'm speaking out of turn, you can.
No, I mean, I think that's appropriate. The applicant might respond, it's their application, but it's within this board's authority to make whatever kind of recommendation it wants to make regarding the number of waivers it wants to grant. or not to grant.
So the action itself that we would take tonight would grant a rezoning that would allow restaurants with drive-through service?
Yes.
In addition to the waivers?
Yes, it permits those uses, and it permits the, if you were to approve all the waiver requests, it would move on to the city commission, who would ultimately decide whether those waivers would be approved.
Thank you.
Would you clarify for me the screen that you had up
Sure.
where there was proposed shrubbery or
In
the back side of the building where you had those two lines
You're referring
to the one that
that?
intrudes onto the
Or that?
property?
This one?
Yes.
Okay.
That had not been, the agreement had not been made to do this. Am I correct?
I do not believe that the property owner of that residential property has given approval for the extra landscaping on his property. I think it was and I'll let the applicant speak on this, I think it was the intent of the applicant that if he wasn't able to provide additional landscaping on the applicant's side to offer that buffer, he was going to offer additional landscaping on the resident's side to be able to screen the property. But we didn't have the approval yet, and we do not yet have the approval. If we get the approval, the PD rezoning, if the property owner of the single family was acceptable to that, we would be able to have the applicant provide additional landscaping on that side.
And our approval could be with the requirement that happens.
Yes, it could be written into the PD agreement that says, as an off-site improvement, you have to provide additional landscaping, however it's designed, and we'd have to come up with a design that would be acceptable to the property owner, that the applicant would be responsible for.
Are there any other questions? Thank
This
you very
states
much.
as requested by the homeowner, so did the
Well,
homeowner
and
not
that's-
request that?
That was the information that I had received initially, and I think you can speak to the applicant, and perhaps the homeowner is here today, and he can speak on that also. It was the conversations and some things that they had worked out, so.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll hear from the applicant, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Rob Merrill with Cobb Cole, 149 South Ridgewood, here in beautiful downtown Daytona Beach. On behalf of Mr. Holub, who's here with me tonight, I believe he's going to pass out a few. Oh, we're already passing them out. This is actually a hard copy of his PowerPoint. If it's back working now, good. And so we're going to kind of do a tag team with you tonight. Paul, I think you all are familiar with Paul. I introduced him last time and talked about him quite a bit when I was here back in March with the comp plan amendment. And Paul's been doing this about as long as I have, so he and I are both going to talk to you tonight, and he's going to have the privilege of showing you most of the pretty pictures. I'm just going to say a few words before he does that, if that's okay with you guys. First, I'll kind of put this I'll try to answer some of your questions. Some of your questions will be better answered by Paul, in particular the part about the neighbor and the conversations that have happened. And he's here tonight too, I think, Mr. Kemmer, and he'll, I think, have things to say. And hopefully we'll come to a resolution that makes everybody happy, or everybody a little mad, which usually is about just as good. But I'll start by reminding you that this is, as Dennis said, an application that's been before you in the comprehensive plan form, and now we're moving into a much more design-related form, which I told you we'd be back with, so that we could discuss all of the plan-related questions and issues about this property. You remember we talked about a lot of big picture issues. What should be on this property? You know, what should be next to this historic neighborhood, and how much of these various things? And we had a lot of discussion at your last meeting about those things, and I think we came to a pretty reasonable conclusion. I'll remind you that this application was before you a couple years ago with a much more aggressive proposal for a lot more retail on the site, and we have scaled it back by 50% or more in terms of the retail as a result of your action that you took back in March. So this zoning that's before you tonight is intended to be consistent with the comp plan amendment, assuming that it comes back from the state and that it's ultimately adopted by the City Commission. And so your action tonight and your recommendation tonight would be contingent upon that. I think before I get Paul to stand up and talk about the actual plans which are now in front of you, including some of his other projects, which I think is important, I'm going to talk a little bit again about him. I think it's important for you to understand. I think some of you may not have even been here during the comp plan component of this, so I may repeat myself a little bit just for your benefit. You know, Paul and his company have been around for, I think, 30 or so years developing this exact type of product in mostly Ormond Beach and some in Port Orange, and this is his first project in Daytona. I got to say, as somebody who's been working in Daytona for 27, 28 years, I'm very happy that he's finally found a place in Daytona, because what he's done in these other communities has been way above par. And I think evidence of that is found in this packet. I don't know if Paul will brag on himself like I will, but we have letters from several people that I think speak very loudly to his reputation. And I think if you visited his properties, you know this. I'm not telling you anything new. I know that it was of some concern to folks that he makes sure he had conversations with the school district, which we have had. You see a letter from Sarah Lee Morrissey, which Sarah Lee may be here tonight. No, she got to get out of it tonight, but she's the planning director for the school district, and she wrote a letter approving and supporting the project, as did Dr. Salerno from Mainland, the principal at Mainland, and Dr. John Johnson from Embry-Riddle. So we have the surrounding schools in support, fully in support in writing, and that's in your packet. You also have, not in your packet, but in the packet that Paul just gave you, letters from Carl Persis, Fred Costello, and Dave Hood, all former mayors of Ormond Beach, and have gone on to higher offices, I think all of them. And they all speak highly of Paul and his projects. And I think some of their letters even get into some of the aspects of Paul's character and his as a developer in their community, in a corporate citizen, including just what we're seeing here tonight and what you've seen in these previous meetings, which is his ability to work with the neighbors and try to make things work for them. Most of Paul's projects are in exactly this posture. They're either along State Road 40 or other corridors that have residences right behind them. And so he's dealt with the interface with residences, and successfully, not only in bringing pictures of things that would work, but building them, living with the neighbors, having the neighbors become his customers and his friends in many cases. And in fact, the last letter that you see in there is from a gentleman by the name of Alan Gilbert, probably the most important of the letters in that packet, in my opinion. Alan used to work for the city of Ormond Beach, and he lives immediately adjacent, much like Mr. Kemmer, who's here tonight, to one of Paul's projects, one that's very similar to this one. And Alan, you'll see in his letter, says Paul's been a great neighbor. He wasn't so sure at the beginning, was skeptical like most neighbors, and has turned out to be very, very happy with Paul and his project as a neighbor. You talked a lot about the various code waivers that are associated with this project. If you look at the site plan, you see that this is a fairly odd-shaped piece of property, which causes a few pinch points. The waivers in number are, I think, 9 or 10. Not unheard of in a PUD process. We've had a lot of these in my day, but they're relatively small. When you look at what they are, not only are they relatively small things. For instance, the setback on the west side, on the south side, is a result of the depth of the property on the easterly portion. Also, what you don't notice, and Dennis may or may not have mentioned, is there's a huge right-of-way on Cordova, 90% of which is covered with trees. So the need for buffering back there is much less. And then if you look at the way the back of the property is designed, which Paul will describe to you, it's a camouflage back. So I'm going to let him get into some of those nuances, but I would suggest to you that when you're talking about the waivers and which waivers do we like and not like, the project works with those waivers. It doesn't work without them. And in fact, it's clear to me, and if you'll look at the letter that I wrote you that's in your packet, it's clear to me that the benefits, and this is what we do with PUDs. You guys have seen hundreds of them, literally. It's a negotiated zoning. And I promise you, all of the ones that I've been involved in, I lost the negotiation if there's a winner and loser, because the city's the one who ultimately approves these things. And to the extent that someone has a project that needs certain things to be done differently than the code book allows, they have to bring to the table something heavier to counterbalance it. In this case, there are several things. They're listed in my letter. I won't go into them. Some of them are intuitively obvious. This is a huge tax benefit, employment benefit. Paul has been a good neighbor in other places and will be here as well. The landscaping, as I alluded to in the previous agenda item that he's bringing to this project, although narrower in size and area, is going to be much bigger in terms of tree caliper, which means a lot more expenditure on trees. And Bob, the kind of trees you like. And I think 2,500 plants. So this is going to be the nicest landscaping on ISB today when it gets put in, bar none. There may be others that follow, some of which are projects I'm involved in, which will be as nice or nicer. But this is going to be gorgeous in terms of the landscaping. Dennis talked a little bit about the history of the conversations with the neighborhood. I'm not sure how many of the neighbors are here tonight. I would say just by head count in the audience, fewer than were here at previous meetings, which should tell you something. I think we've made progress over these several meetings, including the meetings, as Ken alluded to, the many meetings with city staff. This process sometimes, when it takes a long time, the product that comes out the end, as you know, is a little better polished and I think acceptable, hopefully, to you folks. Through those many meetings, we've had a lot of compromises along the way, and I don't want you to think that this end product that we're bringing to you is half baked. It's not. It's had a lot of refinement, including the way that we basically compromised by saying we want less. We'll take less than half of what we originally asked for in terms of retail, which is the true generator on this site in terms of its ability to be marketable. I'll also point out to you that in the staff report you'll see, I think it's on page 4 of the staff report, there's a list of prohibited uses that we ended up agreeing we wouldn't do this, we wouldn't do that. I won't go into all those, but there are things that somebody might think are inappropriate, so we agreed to put those in the development agreement. I know you guys don't get development agreements because it's kind of too much stuff, but I think Dennis took pieces of that and put it in the report, and that's shown. That's on page 5 of the staff report. And again, you guys had some questions about the landscaping on the adjoining property, and we have a neighbor that's very close to us. One particular neighbor, he's here tonight. He'll speak, I'm sure. Mr. Hollob's had direct contact with him several different times, and he'll speak to that as well. So I think that needs to sort of happen, the conversation, if you will, before the questions get answered. So with that, I think I'll close and probably hold questions for me until Paul gets done, if that's okay with you guys.
All right, can we hear from him, please?
Thanks.
I think we're going to have to limit you a little bit on your talking because there's been a long time spent on this already. We have other issues that are coming after that, so I hope you will move along and not repeat what's been done before. Thank you.
I certainly will try. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, for your record, my name is Paul Holub. and I reside at 675 North Beach Street in Ormond Beach. I have been developing in Volusia County for 30 years, mostly with office, retail, medical complexes such as this. This particular project I've worked on for the last 4 years, and I've been before this board on several occasions. There's a lot of items that have come up with the various neighborhood meetings that we've had, and a lot of misconception out there. People talk about the trees on Cordova Avenue. We are not taking down any of the trees on Cordova Avenue that's within the city right-of-way. There's a 70-foot city right-of-way with a 16-foot paved road. So we have approximately 27 feet from the edge of pavement to our property line. And there's a large amount of trees within that area. We are not cutting those down. A lot of residents have called or emailed me and said, why are you clear cutting these trees on Cordova? We're not taking any trees out on Cordova. Sidewalk on Cordova, it's one of the waivers that we asked for. It's not something that we want. We'll be more than happy to put a sidewalk in on Cordova. It's the neighbors that did not want the sidewalk. So it is one of the waivers, as some of the other waivers that were generated from the neighborhood. If this board wants a sidewalk on Cordova, we'll be more than happy to install it. Part of the reason, though, to avoid is the trees. If we put the sidewalk in, we're going to lose some trees. There's been some discussion about, this type of center is going to create noise and odors. They don't. People can come up here and say that, but I can prove it because I have shopping centers throughout the county, and I've suggested to these residents to go sit outside, sit in the back of one of our centers, go up to Tuscany shops, sit outside, sit in the back. We have restaurants, we have retail. We don't have a noise issue. We don't have an odor issue. We have 3 restaurants in that center. You can go over to Seminole Center where we have 3 restaurants. You don't have noise. You don't have odor. You can say that, but you can't demonstrate it. But we can demonstrate it with the centers that we've built. If you would simply go and visit them, and we can quantify that simply doesn't exist. They said we're intruding into their neighborhood. And as I'll show you on the PowerPoint here briefly, we have totally restricted the project from the neighborhood. There is no egress point into their neighborhood. We have points on ISB, and the neighborhood is simply, we're right out only on Central Avenue, and we simply have no access point into their neighborhood. That was early on from the neighborhood. We used to have access, which we thought was beneficial not only for us, but we thought it was beneficial for the neighborhood so that if they wanted to visit the center and use it, they would not have to go out to ISB to get into the center. I can tell you from history, the neighborhood will use the center. We've built these centers. We have had opposition in the past. And when these centers have been completed, I can't tell you how many of the neighbors that have opposed our centers have come up to me and said, we didn't envision it, we were wrong, we use the center, they come up on their bike, they walk to it, they come up by car, and we have access points for them to get in so they don't have to go out onto the main road. So I think that's a mistake for the neighborhood not to have an access point in, but we will live with that. There is... if we could start the PowerPoint. This one. Okay, thank you. This is the, I'm sorry. You must have hit it. This is the main elevation, and it doesn't really do it much justice. This is an architectural rendering, so the landscaping is not actually in the photo. The landscaping from the street view, of course, would be significant, but it's not reflected in this particular rendering. But there's probably, I think we estimated about $500,000 of architectural embellishments on this building to give it this look. And where we don't meet the one waiver on this sidewall, we do have a tower and we do have awnings in that area, and we do have architectural bands. But in order to meet the code, we would have to take part of the building and indent it 3 feet or extend it out 3 feet, and it doesn't work in that particular area with the tenant that we have. So we have other embellishments but we don't meet the technical part of the code because we don't have the indentation. So some of these waivers may sound significant, but really, when you look at them and go through them, they are only for portions of the project, portions of the property, such as that. This is just a view from the back. We take all of our downspouts, we put them internal to the building so you don't have downspouts that are on the back of the building. We build an electrical room, and we take all of our electrical equipment and meters and disconnects, and we put them inside the building so that you're not looking at anything on the back of the building other than the stucco, the banding. We put awnings over all of the rear doors, and of course we would have a privacy fence along Cordova, the length of the property. That's 6 foot tall, and we don't use a residential wood fence or anything like that. We use a commercial grade vinyl fence with a 20-year warranty, and actually they come in colors now, so you don't have to pick white and worry about it fading or being stained. We would pick an earth tone color to match the building. This is one of our projects on Granada, very similar in size, very similar in a mix of tenants that we would have for this project. And actually, the landscape buffer is very similar. It's about a 20-foot landscape buffer, although what we propose on ISB has much more dense material, size, and number of trees and shrubs and plants. We are planting 78 new trees on this site and 2,400 plants that range from 1 to 7 gallons. This is just another picture of the Tuscany Shops, one of the centers that we have on Granada. Somewhat similar architecture where we have raised towers, tile roofs, a lot of architectural hardscape features where we'll embellish with pavers, decorative railings and such. This is a project at Seminole, and just up the road. It's a little smaller in size, about 14,000 square feet, but same similar mix of tenants. And one of the things at Seminole is your package, you have the letter from Alan Gilbert, and this doesn't really show it, but right on the side of this project is where Alan Gilbert lives. He's probably the most affected neighbor I've ever had in 30 years of business. His side yard, his front yard, his backyard abutted this center. And 12 years ago, Alan went to the city of Ormond Beach with me and supported the project. And I saw Alan last week, and he's 92 years old now. And I said, Alan, and I've seen him in between over the years, but I said, do you regret supporting this project? He said, no, absolutely not. He goes, I've lived here. You've done what you said you're going to do. He said, but more importantly, he goes, I enjoy being able to walk over and get coffee or get a sandwich or whatever. The noise hasn't impacted him because there hasn't been a noise issue. The odors haven't impacted him because that doesn't exist. What's probably more important or impressive and probably more important to you today is across the street from Alan was Harley Hoffman. And Harley was a county council member back in the day, and when I took this project to the city of Ormond, Harley opposed it, and that was 12 years ago. And he filled the auditorium, and he opposed the project, and he was also the HOA president. About 3-4 weeks ago, I took another property that abutted Harley's property to the city of Ormond Beach for rezoning to restaurant and retail. I met with Harley. I said, Harley, you've been here for 12 years, directly across the street from this shopping center. I'm going to build retail restaurant in your backyard if I could have your support. He came to the city commission meeting and spoke in favor of it. Not because of Paul Holland, but because he lived across from this center and he saw that it doesn't have an impact on him. It doesn't have an impact on his residential existence. He came to City Hall and instead of objecting to the project, got up and spoke in favor of it. And that's 5 acres of retail and restaurant that's going to abut his backyard, very similar to Mr. Kemmer's, almost identical. And I think that tells you a lot about the existence of these types of centers. These aren't your power centers. These aren't your fast food restaurants. It's very different. A combination of retail restaurants, very low impact. And that's the type of response, I think, if we build this center that you're going to see afterwards from the neighborhood. They're going to embrace it. They're going to use it. And we've had a lot of safeguards so that we do not impact them. I don't think we can make everybody happy tonight, but we certainly have made a lot of progress over the last 4 years.
I'm going to have to get you to move on because we've got a big We have a lot of items tonight that we have to cover, so please
Okay.
move on.
Okay, your site plan, which you have, let me go to this is Mr. Kemmer's backyard. This is the vegetation that currently exists in his backyard. And just beyond here is where the privacy wall, and it could be a fence or it could be a wall, whatever he would like, we would install. It could be 6 foot tall, it could be 8 foot tall, whatever his preference is. We did meet in March of this year with Mr. Kemmer and asked about putting some landscaping on his side of the property. We prepared a plan to depict that, and we've given that to him. I'll let Mr. Kemmer speak for himself as to whether he would like us to plant on his side of the property. There's already existing vegetation there. We certainly would supplement it with a wall, but there's quite a bit of vegetation. There was also a concern with the 3 large trees in his backyard that if we put this wall in, we're going to kill the trees. So I had a surveyor go out there today, and I had them measure, and there's 4 trees. 3 of them range from 9 foot to 10 foot 6 off of our property line, and 1 palm tree is 4.5 feet. So we can put a wall in and not have any impact to those trees. I think Mr. Kemmer's yard extends further than he thinks it does. He has a fence up, and he actually owns a little more property, so that's probably why he thought we would impact his wall, the wall would impact his trees. This landscape plan, Mr. Kemmer asked us in this area if we would move the fence 10 foot in and put the landscaping on his side. We did that. We put a fence in, and we added the landscape on his side of the fence. So we meet the landscape requirement here. We meet the landscape buffer here. It's this area right here that is supposed to be 10 feet, and we have 5 feet. And that's where the wall or the fence would go. This just is a quick view of Cordova Avenue, and these are all existing trees which would remain in that 27-foot swath. That's all city right-of-way. We would not have any construction in that area whatsoever.
You're about finished? You almost through?
Yes, sir.
Please.
If you have any questions, we'll be glad to answer them.
Okay. Thank you very much. We just have a lot of agendas tonight. So are there any questions of the applicant? Does anybody in the audience like to speak in favor of this issue? Would anybody like to speak against? If so, please come forward. And I'm assuming you filled out one of these forms?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Would you speak into the microphone, Kathy suggested?
My name is Anita Parrish Emery. I am a native and lifelong resident of Daytona Beach. I live at 219 Tarragona Way in the beautiful highlands of Daytona Beach and have for many years. In 1922, my father-in-law, Don J. Emery, arrived as an employee of Star Advertising. He soon developed his own business, and the Daytona Highlands became one of his clients. It was the suburb of hills and lakes. On June 1, 1925, H.B. Kaysen, city manager of Daytona, wrote to the Daytona Highlands Company, quote, Daytona Highlands Development is one of the greatest and best located subdivisions in the South. End quote. It still is. I know. I lived there. In 1938, Don J. Emery built a home on the Highlands on Tarragona Way. And I live there now. I met and married my husband and moved in, not all on the same day, but in September 1967. That means I have been a resident for over 46 years at that spot. And with all due respect to Mr. Holub, I most sincerely object to this project. I've heard about people in Port Orange and in Ormond. I live in Daytona. Maybe there are not as many people from the Highlands here tonight, but we expect you, our city, our elected, appointed officials, to protect us. In 1983, my husband, the late Don W. Emery, received several plaques and certificates in appreciation for his 27 years on the planning board of Daytona Beach. He made the tough decision, and he was honored as an inspiration, and I quote, who constantly would strive to, he was an inspiration, to all in Daytona Beach, who constantly strive to serve our community with loyalty, fairness, and devotion. I expect the best from you. This is my neighborhood. This is my home. This is my community. Vote no. Thank you.
Does anybody else like to speak against, please? Why don't you all come forward, those of you who do, and so we can just
Good
move
evening.
along.
I'm Mrs. Tina Velasquez. I live at 205 Tarragona, and I've only been a resident for 10 years. But what my objection is, and it's more of a question than really an objection. There was a situation, a commissioner told me from New York, the same type of neighborhood, the same type of mall, and the sewer line, because we do have an antiquated sewer line in this area, I'm sure, became blocked, and for two blocks away from the mall, because of the restaurants and all the grease and gook that gets into the sewer lines, there was a blockage for 2 blocks, and it cost the owner of the mall, who built the mall and owned it, several $1 million to repair all this backup. And I wouldn't wish that on Mr. Hollop. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. But my concern, and I want to make sure that it is documented, because I'm a paralegal by profession, by Supreme Court Justice before, that I have brought up the subject of the sewers. So if we have problems down the street, down the road a bit, and we have, to do something about the sewers, we residents aren't going to be responsible. And I hope the city of Daytona doesn't have to pay for it, because that would be quite a bit.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. What would be the situation with that?
Well, there's federal law in place now that requires this city as a local government to have pre-treatment requirements for businesses that are going to dump sewage into the city sewer system. So it's very tightly regulated. I can't tell you anything more specific than that. You would need to have somebody from the utilities department address those kinds of issues.
Sure it was on record that I did object.
Okay. Anybody else like to speak against? Please come forward.
Gary Kemmer, 1144 Cordova. I'm the famous Mr. Kemmer. Retail is already zoned where it's supposed to be, east and west of our neighborhood. We don't need retail protruding into the neighborhood. We've got plenty of retail around us. You're not going to get extra taxes. You're not going to get extra business out of this. All you're going to get is more empty stores at Daytona Mall and Volusia Mall. Okay, it's going to be a washout, plus neighborhood values will go down, so you'll get less taxes there. This is different from the neighborhoods in Ormond. Up in the Ormond neighborhoods are not pass-through neighborhoods. They have the Tomoka River behind them. That's why there's no problem with the traffic and passing through up there. The Daytona Highlands is a pass-through neighborhood. Now, this is very dependent on getting a left-hand turn lane off of Speedway into the project. It's a head-butting left-hand turn lane. I live right there. I hear crashes out there all the time. There's a high number of crashes out there. You're going to at least quadruple the number of crashes if that two left-hand turn head-butting left-hand turn lanes are right there at the exact same spot. We do not believe that DOT is going to approve that. There's a hill there coming up that hill. It's too close to the intersection. We don't believe it's going to be approved. And because it's not approved, there's going to be a massive amount of traffic coming through Tarragona, Orange Avenue, down Tarragona, up through Cordova. Cordova is a small residential street. It was never meant to be a commercial road. Okay. Now let me get to the meat of this thing. I'm the person who's most affected by this. I'm the person who's expected to pay the price for this development. Nobody is as affected by this as I am. I guess it's not up there, but I'm right in the armpit of that thing. I'm right there in the corner. It's on two sides of me. I bought a house in a residential neighborhood, and it's a residential house. Now, by changing the zoning, you're putting me in a commercial district with restaurants right next door to me. I'm going to have smelly fried chicken and pizza wafting through my house all the time. However, at least some rules have been made to protect people like me in cases like this. I won't read you the whole thing, but it's Article 18, Sections 1.6, buffer yards and screening. You saw it up here earlier. Just to protect people like me, in cases like this, the developer is required to put a 10-foot buffer zone between residential single-family residences and the proposed retail project. That buffer zone is to consist only of vegetation, not walls, not pavement, not construction. Now, not only am I expected to pay the price of having the value of my house sink to almost nothing, because now I'm going to be next to a restaurant, and as was explained earlier, it might be a fast food restaurant. But I'm also expected to give up this buffer zone and give it to the developer so he can build the project, because I know he can't build it without the buffer. And the problem was, you're just shoehorning too much in there. And right at my back line, I've got those big trees. It's news to me if I own more than I thought I did. I own right to the fence, I think. But even if it's a couple of feet more, there's very large, 80-something foot tall trees right there on the line. Now, the bulldozers are going to scrape those roots, and then I'm going to get a message from probably the property owner telling me that I have so many days to cut down my dead trees because they're hanging over the retail businesses. So this is a double whammy. And not only am I suddenly now next door to commercial restaurants, but now I'm going to be expected to shell out thousands of dollars to cut down my prized trees, probably. Now, I want to give Mr. Holub credit for talking to me. He did finally come to me and talk to me along with Mr. Trost. And they're very reasonable, nice people. They were trying to make accommodations as much as possible to ameliorate things as much as possible. They offered to give me a little more space out front, but he won't budge on the back. I told him that a buffer zone was required there, and he redid the plans and gave them back to me. And when I examined them, I found out that he proposed putting the buffer zone on my property. I don't give permission for anybody to come onto my property, cut down the vegetation I've got so they can plant more vegetation. Okay? The buffer zone is to be provided off my property, not on my property. I'm already expected to give up the 30 feet I'm supposed to get between my property and the building has shrunk to 10 feet, and the vegetation buffer zone on the back of my property has shrunk to 0. I'm the guy who's expected to give it up. Now, folks, you all probably have homes in residential areas, residential neighborhoods. If it can be done to me, it could be done to you. All right? I would like to work with Mr. Holub, but in that he's right that something probably will go there. I wish it was a park or a residential neighborhood. But, you know, I'm getting whacked. I'm the guy who's getting whacked here. And the rest of the neighborhood doesn't like it either. So that's all I have to say. I think I've covered everything. Thank you.
Did he give you a green slip?
Yeah, we got it. Okay. Thank you. Next, please.
My name is Robert Kelly. I live at 1110 Loomis Avenue in the Daytona Highlands, and I'm president of the Daytona Highlands Neighborhood Association. I just want to make it be known that the Neighborhood Association does oppose this project. We've spoken in the past about this, and our primary objection is the retail and restaurant use of that property. And our concern goes beyond Mr. Holub's proposal and goes to the stretch of road that runs along International Speedway Boulevard between Mainland High School and Nova Road. And not everybody is Mr. Holub, number one. The other thing that was that Mr. Merrill correctly observed, that the numbers of neighbors who are here today are less than the numbers of neighbors who have appeared here before. But I would suggest to you that those neighbors, that there's a rather large growing consensus in the neighborhood that this is going to happen. And but I can tell you that it does not indicate, in my estimation, in terms of my conversations with neighbors, it doesn't indicate that people become more comfortable with this. We really are people who are in fear for the integrity of our neighborhood, and we really are in a position where we need to rely on you to support us and protect that neighborhood. You've heard about the history of the neighborhood. You know about the history of the neighborhood. You know about the character of the neighborhood. That stretch of ISB makes a powerful statement about our public assets. We've got Mainland High School. We've got Daytona State College. We've got Tuscaloosa Park. This is a special place. The neighborhood is special. That area is special. And I would just ask you to support us in preventing the development of retail and restaurant in that area. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hi. Hello. My name is Fred Favorite. I live at 100 Tarragona Way. Have lived there for 13 years, and it's a great old house. We're on 3 lots, one on Tarragona, one on Ponce de Leon, and then, of course, Cordova is behind our house. We have great neighbors. Mrs. Emery was kind enough to give us pictures that her father-in-law had done of our house, which was one of the first ones built there. And believe it or not, I'm not against this development. I think that with your intelligent guidance, this could be something good for our neighborhood. I honestly feel that. But it's just a thing that I know that the neighbors have a big thing about it. But we're right on the front. We face International Speedway. And also we do live on they're all public roads. Anyone can drive on that they want to. I find the kids that walk by in school time to be quite mannerly. I don't find them bad at all. And one person leaves a nice can for me when school's on over in one area every day. I pick it up every day, going up on Tarragona. So big deal. Lucky I can still pick it up. But in the meantime, Mr. Hullab has done some wonderful developments. We only go by what we see and know what he has done, which could bring, I believe, some good development and some jobs for people which are sorely needed at this time of our economy, I believe. Thank God, but for you, I'm at the end of my whole, whatever it is, earning business. But in the meantime, I think with your help and guidance, this could be a wonderful thing. I really do. And also, it would be very nice if the Homeowners Association would get together somehow and help some of the people that are letting their properties go down the tubes, and maybe help them cut all the weeds, because there's a lot of houses in bad repair further up from our property. Luckily, where we are, it's quite nice.
Thank you.
And I do love my neighborhood. It's great, and the hospital bit is terrific. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Next, please.
You want to remind everybody about the green card?
Yes, I did not fill out a green card yet. I was a little late. I will.
No, wait. Would you fill out after you finish, please?
My name is Carol Bristow. I live at 609 Tarragona Way, and my concern is I've been there since the 50s. My parents built a house there. My aunt built a house there. My grandmother built a house down in that area. I'm at the other end. However, I do have some concerns. I want to know why it is that we keep seeing pictures of the towers on the designs. When I came to the first meeting, I said, why can't we do the integrity of design of this thing? If we're going to be getting this building, and there's nothing we can do to kind of... I'm against it, actually, but if we're still, why can't we look at the archway and the uniqueness of the arch? That has been there forever. Can we not design the building that may have to go in there, something to look like the arch and the integrity of the arch, since it's been there since the 20s and it's historical? That's the one thing I really would like to see in the enhancement. The integrity of our neighborhood really needs to be maintained. I intend on living there till I die like my mother did at 93. So she died in the house, as did my father did at 92. So I'm not going anywhere from 609 Tarragona Way. And we have traffic coming down around that corner and up the bridge and around the hill. And we have massive stuff happening at our end. So I don't know even what's going to happen at the other end of the street when all of this happens. So I really would like to see the preservation of the integrity of the archway, since it has a major thing coming in from ISB to the beach and all of this new development, if that occurs. But I really do not want to have it at all. But that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I filled out a sheet. My name is Frank Marzatelli. I have an interest in the property at 100 Tarragona Way. I hope you can see yourself through all the objections, because I think the timing is right and the developer is right for this to be a go-ahead. I know in the past people have gotten up and said that our neighborhood is like a Fabergé egg. Well, BS. It is a mix, match, hodgepodge of residences that are not kept up to the best that they could be. Mrs. Emery is right in the way things used to be back in the early 20s and maybe 30s. But things have changed, and that has been a sore spot in this locale for too long of a period. Nothing is ever going to happen unless you give it to a experienced developer like Mr. Holub and let him run with it, but make sure you can see yourself through the different variances that he wants from you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay, then I guess we'll close it down as far as public discussion.
Can we get a quick response, Mr. Chair?
Well, it better be quick, because this has been a sales job tonight. It hadn't been.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just briefly, I want to just respond to some of the comments from the residents. Sewer, we put grease traps in. We have to meet all codes, and our sewer goes into a manhole. If our sewer backs up, it will only be from our manhole back to the building. As far as extra retail and replacing retail in one location to another, every single LOI or every single inquiry we've had on this property so far has been from a new retailer or a new restaurant that does not exist in the area, or has been from a business that wants to open a additional location. It has not been from a location in the mall that's going to relocate. As far as the left turn lane, we've already met with FDOT. We've had several meetings with them on the left turn lane on ISB. We do meet the requirements, the spacing requirements, and we have formal plans that have been drafted and been submitted to FDOT. We have a 5-foot buffer at the back of Mr. Kemmer's yard on our side of the wall. We don't have a 0 buffer. If this board thinks that having a 10-foot buffer, which is what code is necessary, then I would ask that you support this project with the condition that the buffer be 10 feet. We thought that supplementing, we weren't going to take anything out of his backyard, but we thought that supplementing his backyard and adding additional material there on his side of the wall would give him more privacy and protection. But if this board feels that a 10-foot buffer, which is code, is necessary for this project, I would ask that you support the project with that condition, and we will redesign the site and see if we can accommodate the 10-foot buffer. As far as the tower arch goes, there was some discussion about that at a previous meeting. Quite honestly, we have spent so much money and time and effort on this project. Until we know that we have a project that's going to get built and approved, we really haven't gotten into additional architectural designs and consideration for that, but it's certainly something that we would look at. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, we'll close down discussion. Board?
Yes, I have a comment. I'd like to state that I love this neighborhood. I've done a lot of bicycle riding, and I grew up in DeLand, so it's the kind of neighborhood that I grew up in. I think it's beautiful. When I first looked at this project, I had a lot of issues with all of the requests for changes, but I think because of the neighbors and the city staff and the developer, they've developed a brilliant plan to meet all the needs of those involved. So I really think that with all of the feedback and what's probably a lot of changes have probably occurred over time, this has developed into a brilliant plan to meet the needs of our community and the neighborhood.
Okay. Board, anybody else?
Yeah, I think what Mr. Wallace suggested, with the 10-foot, incorporating the 10-foot buffer, I think that would help and get what the neighborhood was looking for. I could support it with the 10-foot buffer.
Anyone else? Mr. Neal?
That was my point exactly last time when we discussed this. It was concerning the buffers in the rear of the building and how it approached the neighborhood. I think if we can keep our neighbors happy, then by doing this, it will make a big step in the right direction. Mr. Hollop could probably have his project.
Okay. Anyone else?
I just want to say sooner or later something will end up going there. And the project itself is a beautiful project. I do agree about the backyard 10-foot buffer zone. My concern is about the pedestrian safety crossing ISB going from one side to the other. Has that issue been addressed? Had that been discussed at all? That was one of my questions the last time on this project.
There was, I think I read in here that they were going to help and that they had talked to Mainland and
Right.
in there with marked crossings and addressed that.
But it has not been addressed.
Safety strip, I thought.
Well, they addressed it in the packet that that's what they intend to do.
No.
No.
But it's
I said, okay.
crossing.
Okay.
I think that's covered.
Anything else? Yes.
Go ahead. When I look at this, I think we're right that something will go there, and I'm familiar with Mr. Hollop's projects elsewhere, and they're handsome, and I think they're an addition to the community. When I see that a restaurant with a drive-through service is planned, I just feel like, and I know we have it west of Clyde Morris, but I feel like that's too intense a use for this particular parcel adjacent to the residential neighborhood. And when you put that partnered with the cumulative reduction in landscape buffers, et cetera, I just feel like it's too intensive for this location. And that's my concern, is the drive-through with the cumulative reduction in landscaping and buffering.
Okay.
Okay. I had questions on the 10 variances we were given, but as it was explained, a lot of it begins to make sense. It seems as if, again, as we discussed at our last meeting on this project, Mr. Hollop has attempted to satisfy the neighbors. I understand their feelings on the neighborhood. I love the neighborhood. I think it is a beautiful neighborhood. It's iconic, but at the same time, as has been said, something is going to go there. Mr. Hollop has gone out of his way to accommodate all of the wants and desires of the neighborhood. I think the only thing that would, at this point, that would satisfy some people is that if this project wasn't there, but the realization of something is going to go there. We've dealt with the street, with the traffic there on Cordoba, the traffic coming from International into that neighborhood, then it being a one-way street going back only to the north, towards International Speedway. I think most of the items that I question in this have been resolved. I understand the tenant directly, or the owner directly behind the property, but I think that 10-foot buffer would resolve the issue.
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, all of my points, someone's already touched on at some point here. I would like to address the drive-through. I know there's a Hollop development on Clyde Morris where the end cap drive-through doesn't necessarily mean Burger King.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Space Coast Credit Union, I believe. It's a far lower in terms of stacking through the drive-through lane. So you don't necessarily know exactly how intense that's going to be.
But we don't know that it's not either. And
but most primary,
but
I'm in the same field as these guys too. But a lot of let's say primary users for a drive-through that is very high intense. They want a freestanding building with extensive stacking. Right. They can back up 15 cars. In this little horseshoe, 3 or 4 deep, one lane. It's going to be a relatively small bank.
I'm picturing a Starbucks, but then I'm also, as I said, I was looking at the cumulative reduction in the buffers all the way around the property, and it very much concerns me.
Actually just involved with the Starbucks and the old Wendy's over there.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
looking at their requirements for a drive-through there, this would not support a Starbucks there. And they're building across the street in front of Kmart. So.
I'm saying some, understanding it's not necessarily a Burger King.
Right.
Anything else? Anybody else?
I think everything's already been said, that what I wanted to say, I do feel greatly for the one individual that's affected back here. Yes, by enforcing the 10-foot buffer is one thing. It still is something where he's trapped on both sides, but there's nothing that can be done about that. And something will be developed there. And I'm familiar with his projects, particularly on Granada. I travel a lot, and I think he's made a Herculean effort to do what needs to be done. I would support it, yes.
Well, I think my frustration is this is something that's been going on for a while, and I think this is the master of it. Actually, it would appear to me that if you're going to put a structure on a piece of property, that what you do is you look at the rules first, and then you try to fit the building into the rules.
Right.
But that appears to be the backward, what's involved here. I think what we're finding more and more is that people put the building up and then come to us and say, how about changing something so it works? And I find a great frustration with that, because otherwise the rules don't make any sense anymore. Maybe we should not have rules. So anyway, I am frustrated by that. I mean, here we have 10 issues, and I put them in yellow. Look. So anyway, that's my thoughts. Are we ready for a motion?
Make a motion to approve Plan Commercial Development Rezoning 2014-125 Carolina Shops PCD with the 10-foot buffer that was mentioned in the conversation.
Second.
We're doing a roll call, please.
Okay, Mr. Hurd?
Here, yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Ego, no. Ms. Washington?
Yes.
Mr. Hoitzman?
No.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Barhu?
Yes.
Mr. Benedict? Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Okay, excuse me.
Okay, I guess the vote is for yes. And, of course, that will be forwarded to the City Commission. Move on to number 7.
Number 7 is a rezoning.
Wait a minute.
Okay, yeah,
Okay,
thank
we'll
you.
get out.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Item number 7 is a rezoning residential plan unit development, First Amendment, DEV 2014-049, Andros Isles RPUD.
Thank you. Can we hear from staff, please?
Thank you. Dennis Mrozek, planner with the City of Daytona Beach. The next item is a request to amend the existing residential plan unit development agreement for property located at the southwest corner of Bevel Road and Williamson Boulevard to allow for modifications to the existing PD to permit development of a portion of the PD for use as a racetrack, gas station, and retail store. The property location, again, is Williamson Boulevard in Bevel, also bordered by I-95 to the west. And a nice little aerial there for you. The property land use is interchange commercial, and the zoning is, again, residential plan unit development. The Andros Isle RPUD was approved in 2007. The 360-unit apartment complex has been completed. Just last year, earlier this year, the PD agreement was extended, I believe, for an additional 5 years. Some particulars to the RPUD. on uses. Permitted uses include a number of things, but they also do include retail, sales, and service, and convenience store with gas pumps, and that's associated with what the request is for the applicant. So it is a permitted use within the zoning district. Just give you an idea, I want to give you some history and kind of give you an overview of what we're looking at on the PD. There you see the Andros Isle, the entire Andros Isle PD, with the exception of where I couldn't square off a couple of the corners there. You'll see it involves the residential apartment complex, and then to the right, and then the open space over there to the left, and then some property also along ISB. This is a plan from what was originally approved with the RPUD and the PD agreement. It's a little fuzzy to see, so I'm going to kind of walk you through it a little bit. What we're looking for or looking at, and I wanted to point out the out parcels, the lots that are potential to be developed on the property. Proposed uses on there. This design did not show anything on there, but it had a potential for something to be on there. This is Lot 2. Lot 2 showed a strip center, a retail strip center at that location. This is Lot 4, 5, and 6. All of those also had the potential for restaurants, retail. There was also allowances for hotel, a couple other types of uses. And when we're looking at this particular application, we're really going to be dealing with the right-hand side. All of the other, on the left-hand side, the apartments, again, were built, and there are no plans at this point for the development of the 3 parcels there along Bevel. So this is the corner of the property. You'll see Bevel runs east-west, and it's just north of the site, and then Williamson runs on the right-hand side there, north-south. What I wanted to do was superimpose the approved plan just to give you an idea of how that would look with the approved plan. A little fuzzy, a little hard to see, but you can see that the basic infrastructure is in place and how that would lay out. This is the retail center that was initially part of the plan. Excuse me. And then you see there is no activity. There is nothing planned, although it is permitted to have another use on that Lot 1. So then the other thing I wanted to do is take the same area and then put down the proposed plan, the racetrack gas station, which is approximately, I think it's almost 6,000 square feet, retail center. It's not considered a convenience store, it's considered a retail center, and the area where the gas pumps are located. The applicant will be combining lots 1 and 2 to be able to create this development. In addition to the request, the applicant has submitted the architectural elevations. You've seen these before. These are in compliance with the PD agreement. They are also in compliance with the city's land development code for design standards. Very similar to what we saw at the Bevel Ridgewood location, very similar to what we saw at the LPGA Williamson location. The applicant has requested 2 separate waivers associated with this request. The first one is to reduce the minimum landscape buffer on the east side of the site from 50 feet to 35 feet for approximately 300 feet. Exactly what does that mean? We're talking about the property that the buffer that's adjacent to Williamson. It's this area right over there. The applicant has requested in order to get the drive aisles, in order to get the parking that he needed for the property. He needed a reduction in the buffer width. I will let the applicant speak a little bit more on that. So he'd be reducing that width to 35 feet. The landscape material that would normally be required to go within that landscape buffer will still be planted. The same number of trees that would be required in a 50-foot buffer would still be going into the landscape buffer. The same number of shrubs and the same number of ground cover would still be going into the landscape buffer. Also, south of there, and you see it adjacent to, this is just a cutout, but that's south of that property, additional landscape area would be included. So as far as the overall area of landscaping, it will be the same as if that 50-foot landscape buffer were held intact. The other waiver request is to permit a 100 square foot monument sign along Bevel Road. I think the code, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe that the The PD agreement discusses a 60-foot, is that, somebody help me out there, but the request is for the 100-square-foot monument sign. And there's an example of the monument sign that they're looking at. I'll find it for you, and I'll thank you, 60. So it's an increase to 100. As far as a recommendation, staff does recommend approval to amend the Andros Isle Residential Plan Unit Development Agreement, modifying the development standards. The item is tentatively scheduled to be heard by the City Commission for first reading on August 6th and second reading on August 20th, which will be a public hearing. An affirmative vote of 6 by the Planning Board members present and voting shall be required to recommend approval to the City Commission. And that concludes staff's presentation.
What did you say? What did you say that the limit would be now on the sign size?
60.
60. And I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. So 60.
60.
And what they're asking for is 100.
Is 100.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Are there any other questions of staff?
Quick question. In relation to other projects along the Speedway or I-95 corridor, sign heights, what are they normally?
Typically an 8-foot sign height is what you would see.
Okay.
Are we anticipating a rewrite to our sign criteria?
I would anticipate that after the rewrite of the Land Development Code, you'll probably see down the line maybe some modifications to the sign plan. It's a difficult sign plan when we hire a few extra staff.
I'm just saying, for us to waive every single
time. We have talked about that in other communities, and I have talked about it. It is a very long process, and we didn't want to slow down the code. So
Correct.
We're basically carrying the same standards into the new code, but there are any number of special projects that could be taken on as soon as that's done.
I'm just saying, so it's our intent that this is really a new standard that we're comfortable with to go with the larger sign, because this is great. Because I see this consistently happening, and and I'm just asking, all right, so we haven't gotten to a rewrite, we're not going to, but we're going to be comfortable with increasing sign size, it seems, on most of the developments that have come forward in the short time that I've been here.
Well, we don't have my thought is like you. I think that they should change the code so we wouldn't have to deal with this every meeting.
I mean, if it's acceptable.
I think we've had major changes in our community with the streets and the sizes and in the industry and technology.
Right.
And because of that, things are happening in other communities that they have found to work and be effective that they're trying to do, and we're butting in.
And I should point out, we do have many sign permits that do come into the city that don't go through this process, that are following the code and they're going in place. So you do not see all of the signs that go in the city. You just see the ones that are part of a project that may be asking for a little variance.
And they are giving up one sign they're entitled to.
Correct.
I did notice that.
Correct.
To enhance getting a
Yes, they
larger
are.
sign. Yeah, that's big, and I think it's an ugly sign, but,
We like
Well,
it.
and just from my point of clarity, 8 foot is normal standard sign. 60 is what's permitted. They want 100.
I'm sorry.
Right? You said 60.
You're talking square footage? Yeah.
No, far as the height of the sign. Yeah.
height would-
And we just had concerns about a 35 foot.
Well,
I understand location has a lot to do with it and so forth, so that's why I was trying
It's
to.
going to be 60 foot tall.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's just the square footage.
Oh, square footage.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
60.
60 square feet.
60 would be a problem.
And I did notice that they had given up another sign. I
That
just,
was clear.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Makes better sense now.
A little bit.
60 foot, wow.
Are there any other
Pretty
questions of
high.
staff?
it could be 120 square feet that they would
Right.
be entitled to,
Right.
really.
Okay.
So this is 100 square feet.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank
okay.
you.
Tell me. Yeah.
And I think we're seeing too, where we just had sign ordinances, and now we have scientists.
Right.
That says, okay, if you're traveling, if the speed limit is 40 miles an hour on this road, you have a sideline of so many miles or whatever. And so there's a more science to it now, instead of just saying you can put up a 4-bay sign.
So many seconds
All right.
Makes better sense.
Can we hear from the applicant, please?
Paul Malmberger with Zeff Cohen.
We'd love to have the 60-foot height sign.
I'm sorry?
We'd like to have the 60-foot height sign. We'd like to think that's a great idea. No, but as Larry said, there were two signs in the previous PUD they were both 47 square feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we combined them into one 100 square foot sign, which is the same sign you've approved for the other two sites.
Right.
So it's consistent with the other two sites you've already approved. And the architecture is consistent, as you mentioned as well. I think they do a real good job with the architecture. There's stone and there's towers, and they're well done. A couple things to point out. There's a small change. Dennis, did they upload those? We had a small, in the exhibits we submitted, since we submitted them, Racetrack has sort of updated their logo. So it's really minor, but I need to put on the record that we're modifying that. So I'm going to show you kind of a before and something chasing me here. There's a before and after effect, and I'm just going to go through these so they're on the record, and we are updating. Here we go. So this is the old elevation with the Racetrack logo, and go to the next one. There's a parallelogram around the logo on the next one. They've updated their logo, so it's really a very minor change. Just showing you guys. Same square footage. Go to the next one if you could. And this is the canopy. It's just a little different. There was a blue stripe there, and now that's the old one. And the new one is still, again, very little change. It's just an update in their corporate logo.
They've had their sign scientists take a look at it.
Yes. Yes. Keep going. Go to the next one. And then this is the sign, the old sign, and then the new sign. So again, pretty small changes here. Just needed you to see these and acknowledge that they're okay. I don't think staff has an issue with them. But we weren't able to update your packets. So I did want to mention the landscape buffer, and Dennis mentioned it already. We've actually added more landscaping to the south of the one road. So although we have as much landscaping as we had before, we actually have more in one area. We've actually added date palms to the corner, just as an accent feature that were above and beyond what code was required. So I just want to mention that. So I think we have plenty of landscaping, actually. We just needed a little bit more room to, as Dennis had mentioned, to accommodate some drive aisles. So that's all I had. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Are there any questions? Yes.
Yeah, I had a question on the entrance and exit on Williamson. Now, the exit that's there now is right turn only.
There's a right in, right out at a midpoint, and then there's a Caribbean Pine Way, Caribbean, what's it called?
Is that the original Andros Isles entryway?
Yes, that goes all the way back to the apartments. And the apartments can use those. They can also get out on Bevel as well. So if you want to go north on Williamson, you have to come all the way down to that road and get out and then go back north. See you out of there.
Are there any other questions of the applicant? If we approve this, will we get gas for that price?
Good question. Depends on when you're there, I suppose.
Great.
I hope.
Let's see, we've heard from the applicant. Is there anybody in the audience like to speak in favor of this issue? Is there anyone like to speak against? Won't you come forward, please? And I'm assuming you've signed the green. Sure. Okay. You've signed the green forms.
I have, yes, sir. Dick Smith, ICI Homes, Vice President of Development. Representing tonight Mr. Maury Hosseini, who's the owner of Signatures Executive Park, across the street, across Williamson Boulevard to the east. He is opposed to a convenience store on the site. We think the city could do much better at a major gateway to the city than a convenience store. We do understand that it is a permitted use in the zoning category. I do want to point out that we have a 50-foot landscape buffer, and we also have a sign that meets code, so we don't have a variance in those things.
Okay.
Also, I'm also representing the Signatures Executive Park POA. Members of that are Embry-Riddle Worldwide and Southern Title. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Kim Foley, get the applicant. No, he said he did sign.
Dick Smith.
I wonder if you would sign get a green form filled out. Did you fill out a green form?
Yes.
You did?
No, I
did you? Would you? Sure. Please? Just the one over there. Okay, would you come forward, please?
Hello. My name is Lydia Banks. I live at 152 Kingbird Circle. Thank you for letting us speak. The residents of Westgate Condo address you tonight. As I said, I live on Kingbird Circle. That is the first circle which is going to be affected the most by this gas station if it comes in. I do not want a gas station there. With a convenience store, and I call it a convenience store because any other racetrack gas station or gas station, it's a convenience store. There's, a little food in it and what you need for your car. That's what it is. I'd like to express some of my concerns if indeed the project does move forward. First is the cars, trucks, motorcycles exiting onto Williamson Boulevard at the southernmost exit will be directing their headlights into the homes in Westgate, my block, especially. That's 3 out of 4 of the directions you can possibly go to. The vehicles that want to travel west, north, south, and south will be using that exit. That's 3 out of 4 directions. Also, the north and westbound traffic exiting there will create a dangerous situation on Williamson. Number 2, the buffer zone needs to be more than pleasing to the eye. It needs to meet the land development code of 50 feet wide to provide natural air and noise filtration. The noise and fumes from idling vehicles, especially trucks, should be a reason to keep the width at 50 feet. That buffer zone needs to be more mid-sized bushes and trees to be effective. Those proposed are low and slow growing. Last but not least, I have questions about the lighting and signage along Williamson. Will the lampposts be shielded in some way or the light directed downward away from Williamson and Westgate? Will the signs be overbearing and glaring onto Williamson? I appreciate your listening to me, and I hope you'll take these points into consideration when you vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else, please?
Good evening. I'm Tamara Hopkins. I live at 136 Del Cox Circle in the Westgate community. And I can guarantee you if they build that, you're not going to get it for that gas price. But I wanted to speak tonight because we currently have on Bevel Road, we had 2 gas stations. One was the Valero Kangaroo and one was the 7-Eleven. When they were both built, neither one had full capacity or lots of traffic, and then 7-Eleven shut down for whatever reason, and now we only have one. That is where I get my gas. At any time I can get my gas, there is never more than 1 car in those pump lanes. So to think that there's enough business to warrant another gas station in that little area is, well, I don't see it. I'm there. I live there. I go in and out of there, and I can't imagine pulling that kind of business for a huge racetrack at this time. And so I also have concerns about the lighting coming into our windows because we bank up right to Williamson. We're on the second row over, so our back bedroom houses would also be affected by incoming and outgoing cars and the lights that are there. We would ask that you, if you do consider this, make it mandatory that they keep up with their 50-foot buffer as we have stipulations for these kind of things. But I'm totally against having that business go in.
Okay, thank you very much.
The 7-Eleven that was across the street closed down because the state bought that. That's for a new interchange. For I-4.
There was still never that much.
So, I mean, that's how they shut down. The state bought them and shut them.
Yes, let's come ahead. Take your green form. Can we take your green form? Oh, you haven't filled it out yet.
Yes, fill it out.
Here, let's take it up here. Put it right there. Thank you.
That was my wife. So she covered pretty much what I think. We don't need another gas station there. We got one. We got one up the street the other way. We just don't need it. And I don't want it. And that's pretty much all I have to say.
Okay. I don't, just not, actually, I almost have to explain it, this is not something that we have a choice if we put it there. I mean, really, this is just allowed. Okay. I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's fine, sir. My name is David Wenzel. I reside at 128 Duck Hawk Circle. My property, the back end of my property, faces Williamson. And I am concerned about a few things, but I will also tell the people that are planning this, it's a beautiful facility that they're looking at. I am not for it. But it is a beautiful facility. We do have gas stations there. There is one left, which 7-Eleven is now gone. But I know that many times the situation will be that things will be voted in. But I would like to say that please do not reduce the buffer zone. The second thing that is a real problem that is in the back area of Pelican Bay in the Westgate condominium section, which I reside at, that back portion all faces Williamson. That gets wild during bike week, race week. The sound is horrible. You cannot sleep, especially during bike week when the pipes are opened all the way and they really let it rip. Also, there's a lot of race cars that take off from there that people just love to lay the rubber out and go flying down Williamson. If there is another service station there, we're going to see a lot more of that. Not only that, the possibility of robberies, shooting, and so on, which I would hope would never happen. I am a customer of Racetrack, and I like Racetrack, but I am totally against that facility being there on the corner. I would rather see another office complex like is on the east side of Williamson be built there rather than a service station. Like I said, it's a beautiful facility, but the one problem that we have in the back of our properties is the sound. If there was a sound barrier that could be placed along that highway, leading from the office complex that is there all the way down through Pelican Bay, that would be one possibility that would make it livable. But other than that, I am totally against it, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else, please?
My name is Peggy Niebling. I live at 120 Black Crow Circle, and that has been my home for the past 17 years. We have a peaceful, lovely neighborhood. Why do we need another gas station? I agree with everything everybody else has said, the noise, the pollution, the lights shining right in our back door, and I have only one thing to ask you all. Well, first of all, thank you for sending the letter out. I have in my hand 41 signatures of homeowners who live in Westgate that do not want a gas station or a restaurant. I agree with somebody who spoke earlier. The fumes from a restaurant, believe me, they'll permeate the air. Those little bitty circles you saw on the other side of Bevel Road, that's our homes. I don't want a gas station and I don't want a restaurant. I have one question. Put yourselves in our place. If you're sitting in your backyard having a barbecue, talking with friends on the patio or whatever, would you want fumes from a gas station and trucks and noise and lights blasting into your home? I don't think so. We don't want it either. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the letters.
I filled one of the forms out too. My name is Jim Such, and I'm at 128 Black Crow Circle. Been there, like everybody's saying, I've been there 19 years. It's a beautiful little collection of condominiums. We love it. We like the way it is, and we really don't want the noise and pollution that's going to come from the gas station. Now, if you look around at most gas stations, there are a lot of people around at any time during the day to do this, buy gas, whatever. The problem we have over there is looking at the land you have, it doesn't seem to me to be enough land to accommodate the big trucks that are going to use that coming right off an I-95 coming from both directions. It's close. It's easy to get back on for the trucks, so they'll just come right out and up the road they'll go. Cars, it's going to be, because of the inlets and outlets of that gas station, there's going to be congestion like you won't believe. It crowds up in afternoons just trying to get through the red light down there. And we get people yelling at each other. I don't know throwing each other, but I know some people would like to do that. I talked to a gentleman here earlier, and I think I see him somewhere here. There he is. And he mentioned some things about we could probably, at some point, solve some of these problems as a group, not try to ram it through because it's the way it is. And I would be much in favor if we could get somebody appointed after. I don't know how you guys are going to vote. I know you have the right. But I think in order to solve the problems like the buffer zone, the vegetation is going to be on both sides of this, on the side of the gas station. Somebody's arguing about it's going to be this high, this high. It should be somewhere around here to at least keep the light out of the light out of our homes, because you know what it's like at night when you're trying to get sleep or sit on the back porch. A lot of noise, a lot of lighting, and all that kind of stuff is a detriment to our life. We appreciate the time you allowed us to come over here and talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else, please? Would you like to follow up on
respond to a couple
these?
things, please. First of all, Racetrack's been doing this for a little while. I think they understand their business model. They know how to get their trucks in and out of their sites. They wouldn't have selected this site if they didn't think it worked. So I think we have to trust them. And this is not a restaurant, okay? There's no food being prepared over here. This is considered retail. So I just want to also make sure everybody knows this. We're not cooking hamburgers right now. Landscaping-wise, there's 3 layers. There's canopy trees, there's understory trees, and there's shrubs. So we've got this level, and this level. So we're meeting all levels. Again, everything that would have gone in a 50-foot buffer is in a 35-foot buffer. And also, I just want to also remind everybody, this is a permitted use within the PUD. We're not asking for anything that wasn't allowed. So gas station with retail sales is permitted in the PUD. So we're only asking for a couple little adjustments, and that's really more the focus of what this is. This is an amendment. So I didn't know if
Would
there's...
you be able to do the 50 feet?
Excuse me?
I said, would you be able to do the 50 feet or somewhere between that and the 35?
No.
Can't do it.
Can't do it, make the site work.
Certainly looks like you have the room that you could shift it to
Doesn't work.
towards 95.
Not with the size of the pumps and everything that we have, no.
Well, I've had a couple of calls, well, save it for discussion.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
Oh, I'm sorry. One more thing I forgot to bring up. The lights are all recessed, so they're effectively shielded from casting overflow off the site.
Well, that's good.
So.
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to let you know.
All right, thank you very much. Board? I'm going to close down the discussion. There'll be no more public discussion. Board?
I've had a couple of calls on this, and one of the concerns that was coming up was on the Andrews Isles coming out, so they can go left or right. They have to go there, otherwise their entrance is a forced right-hand turn. So they would come down and start using Andros aisles, so their traffic is going to pick up. And that means at night, the people that we heard speaking, their homes are right there and the lights are shining right in. I don't know what a solution with that would be, and less on the other side of the road, there's heavy vegetation or something that would help block those lights coming in at nighttime. So I don't know the answer out of it. They're right. They're entitled to a gas station there. I personally would like to see something else go there, but they're entitled.
Yeah, they're entitled to have it.
And as far as racetrack having done the numbers on it, I'm sure they wouldn't spend this kind of money without feeling they're going to make it go. But I am concerned about the residents there.
Okay, anybody else have anything to say?
Going down to the exit on the south end of the racetrack station, if there could be vegetation planted higher, just like the initial plan was for our 35-foot buffer, where they have a high tier, low tier, and a lower tier of vegetation, that would suffice as far as blocking light going into those windows, because it's going straight south, and headlights on trucks and what have you would penetrate their privacy.
Board, any other questions, or is there any other discussion?
That's a statement.
No, I'm sorry, I've closed down. I already closed the public discussion.
Make a motion to approve rezoning of residential planned unit development First Amendment DEV 2014-049 Andros Howell RCUD. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
Nay.
I'm sorry?
Nay.
No.
Okay. All right. Number 8. No, number 8 we're going by, aren't we? Number 9, I guess, Main Street, right?
Yep, just a second. I gotta get my vote in. Okay. You know, I think it's so hard to be a resident in Daytona Beach with all the commercial development.
They conserving?
It's just plain hard.
Are they conserving
We
you?
need to have more people.
I think so. Trying to get us out here.
Right.
I don't want to move next to commercial.
Yes, I did. I voted no.
Did you? Oh, I didn't hear that. Thank you.
Yeah.
On the last one meeting.
I have a problem with the lights going into the house. That's the only thing. The racetrack, I have a problem with that. But if all of it's going to work with something
Okay,
needs to be
are we
done.
ready to go? Get those people out so we can,
I just keep seeing the bump up of commercial and residential all the way along. Very painful, and resolving that for residents of Daytona is hard. I did. I was looking at that. That's what I was doing. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, can we hear from staff, please?
Agenda item number 9 is a zoning map amendment, DEV 2014-059, Bay Street, RDD-2.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Good evening. I'm Jason Jeffries with the project manager with the redevelopment office. And what you have before you is a zoning request on Bay Street in the downtown redevelopment area to rezone 5 small parcels totaling 0.648 acres at 228 through 231 Bay Street and 145 North Ridgewood Avenue from RDD3 commercial to RDD2 central business mixed use. The current zoning is this is the location. It's right. It's very close to the core of downtown, right at the intersection of Bay Street and Ridgewood. Here's we got a picture of it. You'll see there fairly wide thoroughfare on Bay Street with on-street parking, and the future land use is commercial mixed use and high-intensity mixed use in this area. And essentially, the request is rezone it to RDD2, which is consistent with those future land use designations. This did go to the Downtown Redevelopment Board. It recommended approval 7-0, and staff concurs with their recommendation.
Okay. Are there any questions of staff? Can we hear from the applicant, please?
My name is Dwight Selby. I live at 1535 Oak Forest Drive in Ormond Beach. This came about because I represent the property owner on the restaurant at the corner of Bay and Ridgewood, which under RDD3, that restaurant, that building was essentially there was no way it could be occupied because RDD3 requires on-site parking. RDD2 does not require on-site parking. And when I got with the staff and I said, look, with all the parking that's available on Bay Street, is there any chance that we can change the zoning? How could we provide for the ability to get this building back into productive use? And so we explored the opportunity to change the zoning. We had to incorporate these other property owners, and they were more than willing to do it because that benefits them also. And I think RDD3, generally speaking, is the US1 zoning, which it applies mostly to the larger tracts of land. And as you can see, all 5 of these parcels total less than an acre. It's 0.68 acres. So this seems like a totally appropriate thing to do, and it will help to get this particular property back into productive use.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Are there any questions of the applicant?
I could go on and on, but I
No,
imagine
that's right. Thank you very much for not. Are there any questions of the applicant?
No, I don't have any questions, just a comment. This is, like we were talking earlier about the variances and, and changing the zoning to accommodate what is currently there and what would work. This is a perfect example of helping a property that needs it to help them to further do whatever that they're going to do to progress and not put a restriction on them to where they're stymied and have been for a while.
I was enthusiastic when I read this, actually. You're absolutely right.
We've heard from the applicant. Was there anybody in the audience like to speak in favor of this? Did you fill out a yellow form, a green form?
Well, I'm the one that's leasing the building. My name's Dave Riccio.
Yeah, but you're speaking to the board, so when you finish, would you fill out a green form, please?
No problem.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we want to put in a Mexican authentic restaurant that will have takeout, delivery. It's basically the first takeout delivery that would be here in the state of Florida. I created the name. It's called Mexico. So it's a delivery concept, and it has a nice big bar in there. And for 5 years, it's like this place has been like closed down because the lady who owns it speaks like broken English. She's from China, and the husband passed away. So she just got depressed, and she's not interested. And I developed the property up in Ormond, which was the Salty Dog Church. I've been a resident here for 22 years. That sat there for 10 years like an eyesore. So this place is also an eyesore. I have some creative ways to do things. I'm 62 years old, and I know what I like to do with the property. I like to put a nice deck on the back, and really authentic food, no Tex-Mex. And I'm Italian, so I come from a real good home, and my mom was a great chef, and that's all she did all day was cook. And it's a people business, and I'm from Jersey City, so I want to do a good thing here, and I think that we can get your cooperation and get the parking back and make this this place used to be up in the 80s and went down a little bit now. I think everything that's happening right now is going to go right back up.
Okay.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. And don't forget to fill that form out, please. Are there, I guess, does anybody want to speak against this issue? Board?
Make a motion we approve zoning map amendment development 2014-059 Bay Street, RDD-2.
Second. You have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay. Did you want to speak on this next? Oh, Dennis is going to. Okay, you ready to go?
I know, it sounds. Okay, we have Land Development Code text amendment proposed. That's DEV 2014-16. And once again, LDC text amendment permitting digital billboards on I-95.
Okay.
Thank you, Dennis Mrozek, planner with the City of Daytona Beach. As you recall, this item was brought to the board a couple of months ago at the April meeting. What staff had asked for, and with the direction of the board, was to compile more information from the applicant, and for the staff to perhaps put more information together on proposed digital billboards and possible regulations that can be included in any kind of a text amendment moving forward to the City Commission. We did receive some information from the applicant. Hadn't had enough time to go through it fully to be able to come up with a text amendment that would be appropriate for the board. But what we would like to do is introduce several items that we have questions on, and perhaps the board can discuss, and we can get direction on which way the board would like to go, and then we can draft a text amendment with working with the applicant to be able to find something that everybody would be happy with. So, with your permission, we would like to go through some of these questions, and any other questions or concerns that may also come up. One of the topics that we had discussed was the removal of existing billboards. We did find several communities that they did a trade out of billboards. An applicant putting in a digital billboard was required to remove standard billboards, either at that location or at other locations. And the number of those billboards being removed was different. Different communities, different circumstances, different number of billboards being removed. We would like to have a little bit more time to study and come back with an idea of what we're looking at over here on 95, what would be appropriate, if anything would be appropriate as far as a trade out for billboards. Something else we wanted to look at, the applicant originally requested it during their text, but you've been seeing it with these EMCs. It's the allowance for graphics and multiple colors. The billboards, it's right in line with what you would expect with a billboard. You expect to see graphics in multiple colors. We'd like to see if that's something that the board would like us to include into this text, and we can go ahead and make sure that that's going to be part of the text amendment also. Display change timing, EMCs, and I always bring up EMCs because it's the closest thing we have to compare it to what's being requested. EMCs require a 60-second static picture before the picture can change to the next picture. The applicant is requesting 6 seconds for billboards proposed. That is an FDOT standard for the minimum length of time that billboards can before they can change for a digital billboard. So we have to take a look at that. Staff does understand we are talking about 95. We are talking about cars going fast. So whereas maybe 60 seconds may not be appropriate, maybe 6 seconds also isn't appropriate, and maybe we can find that spot. The other one is application fees. I think I had something referring to business tax receipts in the staff report. Actually, what we're looking at is application fees. This is dealing with an application for somebody applying for a digital billboard. Just like somebody applying for an EMC, there's an application fee, and then there's also a fee associated with an annual inspection. Digital billboards require a little bit more work, a little bit more technology to be able to review them, to be able to inspect them. So we need to have fees in place. We'd like to find out what other communities are doing as far as fees, come in with something in line with that, and be able to present that in the text amendment to the City Commission. Something else that had come up, the applicant they were generous enough to discuss that these digital billboards would allow provisions for city and emergency use What we don't have is a procedure in place for how the city would get these messages out onto those boards. So we need to see some sort of a procedure, contact people. How much does the city get? Is it an amount of time that they would have in a week or in a month? So those are some of the things. And there's some great, there are some great communities that have done some things that it allowed the city time to use the digital billboards for whatever the city saw fit to promote a lot of the activities that were going in the city, some charity events. It's a great thing, and if we get the opportunity to do that, we'd like to be able to have a process in place so that we can be a part of that. So, if there's anything else that maybe I didn't mention that we can discuss or talk about, to be able to bring something back to you.
I noticed a recommendation of and replacements on the number of square footage in relationship to the signs that's coming, what has to come down in relationship to what's going up.
There were some communities that instead of doing a 1-for-1 or 1-for-2, 1-for-3 switch, it was a square footage. For every 1 square foot of a digital billboard, you have to remove 3 square feet of a billboard at a different location. So those are possibilities too. We can take a look at that and see if something like that might work.
A combination of the two. There's really a lot in here to go through. All the way from a ratio of 2 to 10. It seemed like about 4 or so was 5.
Well,
and did some of them ask for the number of faces? I'm going to use that term. How many faces you had on a billboard? I noticed that was also part of the ratio. Yeah.
Yeah, that would count as 3 signs as a case in point. Ones that we're talking.
Yeah, the back-to-back billboards would be the 2-phase signs, and we do have provisions in our land development code when we talk about billboards permitting that. There are some billboards with just a single face, so we have to take that in consideration also.
Also, the number of seconds allowed for a sign to change is in there too. That would make a difference. Because I'm sure the billboard company is looking how many signs can they get, in the 60 seconds.
It's a number. It's a revenue number, and the more that they get on there, and we understand that, and we also understand that technology is taking us in that direction, and so we want to make sure we have something put together that meets that technology, but does it in a way that's most appropriate for the city.
The portion on the scams was interesting too.
Which one?
The one on the scams.
Oh,
APA article.
Yeah.
Dennis, do we know how many actual billboards are there within our city area?
Well, that's another thing that we want to take a look at. We're finding that we do have quite a number of billboards, and we have to actually chart them out.
And who owns them? Yeah,
they're owned by different entities, and Lamar and I think Clear Channel and some others. But we are finding some of them are non-conforming billboards. They're allowed to exist as legal non-conforming, but they wouldn't be allowed to transition into a digital billboard unless they were to become conforming. So those are some of the things we have to take into consideration. What is out there right now? Had a call earlier today from somebody looking at sites north of the city, in the city, but just north of LPGA, looking at a couple locations for billboards. And he's aware of the meeting going on and said digital billboards might be the way to go. He's got a long way to go before he gets there. And it's currently not an allowable use where he's going, but he's looking at possibilities of being able to do that. So we have to make sure all of that is kind of tight and in place as far as digital billboards.
Would you also explain when you bring it back? Would you explain to us how the city would get the message to them to be able to get it up on the board? Because that might have some effect upon how do we decide how much time the city can have.
That's one of the questions we have. How do we get the information to them to be able to get up on the board? If we have a ice cream social to raise charity, that's a city thing. Or if there's some sort of an emergency going on, we've got a busted pipe and some flooded roads, and maybe want to get something up there to warn people. So it's something we definitely want to do. Snow evacuations, absolutely. Yes.
They'll be coming here.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure it's done wireless, and I can imagine in the future when you get a number of these up, how powerful they can be in the event of a disaster.
Yeah, no, I think that's,
Get the word out to
This road closed or whatever. But all this talk of signs, I used to look at the billboard and say, it might be something I might want to pull off the road. Now I'm saying, is it digital? Does it flash? Is it graphic? Is it I don't even see the advertising.
Can't enjoy it.
I was on Mason this afternoon, and I was counting how many seconds it was in between the change of the signs. Now, is that conforming or non-conforming, the one on Mason between US 1 and the B?
But the applicant is here, and if he'd like to speak and maybe discuss, if you had any questions, I think he indicated that he'd speak if necessary. And
would you like to come up and do you have anything to add to our discussion?
Green card, so we're
Okay.
good on that. Drew Williams of Kinsey, Vincent, and Powell on behalf of Lamar. I'm going to just be very brief because this is something that the code has not been changed in 11 years. We've gone through how technology has caught up where instead of static billboards, it allows now digital. So a lot of the questions Jeff Burton of Lamar could answer as far as how you can put messages out for the city use. But really what we're here to is to tell the board that we want to work with you and try to iron out and update this code to include digital billboards, and we're willing to listen to anything.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to come up and?
Yes. Jeff Burton, Lamar Advertising.
Mm-hmm.
I am just basically here to answer any questions, any immediate questions that you guys may have in regards to the digitals. I also wanted to state that I noticed that there was a lot of questions about the 6 seconds is when they change. Currently, Daytona Beach already allows changeable message displays with the Tri-Visions. Those currently change between 6 and 8 seconds. So it's the same standard as what we have right now. We just want to basically update the old technology of the Tri-Vision to a digital billboard.
Okay. Are there any questions?
No, I think that the city needs to work with them and get some guidelines, and because, we could what if forever and not really even know the specifics of what the question that we're asking. It's not for the city.
No, I think you're right, and actually it's very nice that you'll do it too, because it'll help us a great deal.
Absolutely. We're happy to work with Dennis and the staff to get a text amendment ready to go.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much for being here.
Only question I would have is how much time do you think?
Microphone.
A couple of months to bring it forward, or what? What are we talking about?
Well, this doesn't need to be advertised. It's not something that would be in there. So as soon as it's ready, we would bring it back.
So kind of leave it open in the.
Yeah, and we'll bring it back as soon as it's ready.
It won't go with submerged land, will it?
No.
I won't make a comment.
No, I understand.
Okay.
No, I just wanted to make sure everybody was awake.
And we're not going to then grant a variance or a waiver as soon as we...
No,
Well, the intent is to adopt something that we...
All right, where are we? Let's see.
We're at other business.
That was number 10. Now we're
Number 10.
That was 10.
Thank you. Okay, that took care of it.
Thank
Right? We
you.
didn't have any vote necessarily on that.
No,
Right.
correct.
Other business, how about downtown Blue Road redevelopment area? Board report?
Yes. Downtown Blue Road Redevelopment Area Board met Tuesday, June 3rd, 12 noon. We had our regular call to order, roll call, and then the approval of the minutes from April 1st. The first item on the agenda was DEV 2014-059 zoning map amendment, Michigan Avenue Residential. This was Bay Street and Ridgewood, the actual item that just came before us. That was approved. Then we had conditional use for Kebabji Restaurant. That is already in place, 200 South Beach Street. What they were asking for was permit for alcohol beverage service, outdoor table service is what they were asking for, and that was approved. We then We had a discussion or an update on the downtown improvement project. We had a discussion and an update on the Marina District project, which kind of corresponds with or runs with parallel with the Holly Hill redevelopment. We had a long discussion on that. Then we talked about the Riverfront Master Plan implementation. There were no public comments, a few board comments, and then we adjourned at 1:15.
Okay, thank you very much. How about Midtown?
Midtown Redevelopment Area Board met Tuesday, June the 10th at 6 p.m. We went through agenda as pre-printed. We did have final site plan approval for the International Speedway Urgent Care, which was approved. Discussion was around Historical Preservation Board, Beautification Board, Recreation Board was needed within our city. We talked about the Juneteenth Festival. We talked about the Orange Avenue redevelopment project. And then the last thing was about a budget meeting. That was it. And I do want to also state next meeting I will be out of town. I will not be present at the next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. How about Main Street?
Main Street Board did not meet.
Oh, gosh, I know you're disappointed not to have a report. How about that? Oh, well, that was good of you to do that, too, because I knew you had some other things that could have been a problem. Well, I guess we don't have a public, do we?
No.
So we can't have public. How about staff?
I've got two things. One, we've included this survey, the TPO survey. Again, they are still open. They're still accepting comments. In fact, they would like you to share this with your neighborhood, anybody you know that wants to do it. You can do it online, or we'll actually take back a hard copy if you want to fill it out. I think it's open. It's open into July for sure. So I know other parts of the county have had pretty large response. We just want to make sure we've provided our input.
How many times can you fill it out?
I would assume you could do it as many as you want, but probably not needed, but certainly would.
Stuff in the ballot box.
Yeah, if you do it online, they might limit you. If you do it by hand, I don't know there's no limit.
Okay.
And then the last thing is we have copies of the Land Development Code. Everyone has those in front of them. We received it yesterday from Clarion as the final public hearing draft. Want to discuss with you at our next meeting. It's a very light agenda. I'm not expecting you to have read that and be totally prepared for a public hearing at the next agenda. I know some of you have had more working with this than others. And actually, by tomorrow, Clarion has indicated that they will have, for those of you that read the last version, have a strike through and underline. So if you want to just look at the strike through and underline, that'll be posted on our website online. This is a clean version. This has been distributed today to the commission. Our machines have been running nonstop pretty much since that arrived here. And I want to talk with you kind of about a schedule long term. If maybe next month we could come back with kind of an overview and get any concerns, comments, whatever you may have. Our contract with Clarion is they're required to come 3 times. We have 3 required hearings, 1 with the planning board, 2 with the city commission. Would expect those would be the 3 that would be here. If we're not going to have a hearing 30 days from now, staff would run that. We could kind of do an overview. We'd like some input at that point that we could give to Clarion, so when they come for the hearing, they're more prepared. Looked at some dates. I think we talked about not doing this at a regular meeting. The next meeting after that would be the August meeting. So if we don't do it at August, are we ready to try to find a date in August before the August meeting and schedule a hearing? I need to let Clarion know, obviously, because they have to make plans to be here if that's the case. They're tentatively right now have scheduled August 14th, which from your next meeting to the August meeting, there are actually 5 weeks in between there. The August 14th date is your Thursday night, but it's 2 weeks before that normal planning board meeting. So they've got that penciled in, but I'm looking for some direction as to how quickly you think you can get through this for a public hearing, and then if we have the hearing, if there's a lot of issues that can be postponed, it's just that I'm not sure we'll have the consultant here for a couple meetings if needed. We spent a lot of time actually with the advisory board, and then subsequent to that with the V-card going through in great detail. Most of the strike through and underlines you'll see were things that V-card had suggested for more flexibility in the code. I think all of the objectives, there's a cover memo in the front of that was given to the commission, very overview, but it talked about the goals. I think all the goals have been met. It's clearly a better code than what we've got now. I would not ever suggest that everything will be worked out with this code. This is a big living, breathing document. As we start using it, I'm sure we'll find some things that even if we don't attack some areas that we didn't change, like the sign code. But I do need some direction. Clarion is looking to how to schedule their schedules in terms of coming down here.
Okay, are there any other,
So we won't have a test on it next month then?
Not unless you want to.
well, I think since we all took speed reading, actually, I don't know why we can't finish that by next month. You should read the thing, and so we know what we're talking about. Isn't that right? Isn't that right?
I did want to mention, I won't be here next month either.
Oh, okay.
July is like that, isn't it?
Yeah, it could be.
Live vacations, you know.
It's a tough month.
Are there any other things to come in front of the board? If
So
not,
did you say you're going to get a strike through, or this is?
It will be posted. This is a clean version,
The clean version.
ready to go to hearing. But the last version that you had, there is a strike through and underline from that. So if you read that thoroughly, you can just look at the strike through and underline without having to read every page of this new one.
Okay, and the strike through and underline.
okay.
Okay.
That's it? We're adjourned.
So,
Meeting of the planning board in session. Can I have a roll call, please?
yes, Mr. Hurd,
Here.
Mr. Moore,
Here.
Ms. Vega here, Ms. Washington here, Mr. Hortsma,
Here.
Mr. Davis, Mr. Neal,
Here.
Mr. Barbu,
Present.
Mr. Benedict, and Mr. Harper.
Here.
Thank you.
You can announce that.
Yes, we have a quorum. Excuse me.
Okay. I think you all received copies of the minutes for the May meeting. Were there any additions or corrections?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Let's move on then. We have one.
We have one continuous.
Yeah, we have one continuance, which you saw in your packet when you got here. I'm assuming the applicant's not here.
I didn't see.
Mr. Mullins.
Then I'll take a motion.
Motion to continue agenda item number 8, rezoning residential plan unit development 2014-32 Bex Homestead.
July.
Till July.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We'll move on to
Land Development Code text amendment, permitting electronic message center signs within comprehensive sign plans for retail centers along International Speedway Boulevard, DEB 2014-056.
Okay, thank you. Can we hear from staff, please?
Thank you. Dennis Mrozek, planner with the City of Daytona Beach. You know what? Hang on one second.
You have to have your weapon with you, right?
Gotta have the weapon, yeah.
I'm telling you.
All righty. This is a request by Rob Merrill of Cobco on behalf of Jamie Flegel, Volusia Mall, and CBL and Associates to amend the Land Development Code, Article 18, Section 6, permitting electronic message center signs as part of a comprehensive sign plan for properties exceeding 35 acres and adjacent to International Speedway Square. Electronic message center signs, these were approved. The ordinance was approved by the City Commission in 2001 to permit EMCs for certain zoning districts and for specific uses. The ordinance provided for design, construction, location, and operational standards of the EMCs, and the proposed LDC amendment would modify the permitted locations for EMC signs. Currently, as far as EMC signs throughout the city, there are quite a few that have been approved, including the Daytona Beach Kennel Club, Halifax Hospital, Embry-Riddle main campus, the BCU main campus, and then the most recently the Daytona Auto Mall. As for the proposed text amendments, it would add an additional location where EMC signs would be permitted. I'm just going to read you what the text is. It's the use of electronic message center signs for retail centers located along International Speedway Boulevard on sites exceeding 35 acres is permitted through the city's approval of a comprehensive sign plan. An additional text modification to allow CSPs for retail centers on ISB greater than 35 acres is also being proposed. See that right there. And then as far as a staff recommendation, the use of the electronic message center signage within the city is a policy matter ultimately decided by the City Commission after a recommendation by the Planning Board. Staff does support the Board's recommendation. An affirmative vote of 6 by the Planning Board members shall be required to recommend approval to the City Commission. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of staff?
I have a question. Just
Sure.
What is the classification of that billboard that's on the corner of Williamson and 92? You know, that changes?
The Tri-Vision? Yeah, it's a billboard,
It's called Tri-Vision.
but it's a Tri-Vision, which is permitted by the code.
Oh, okay.
Hmm?
Yeah, I just didn't know what it was called.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions of staff? Thank you. Can we hear from the applicant, please?
Mr. Chairman, Rob Merrill for the record with Cobb Coal, 149 South Ridgewood, here for the applicant. I'm going to speak on this item and the next one. I may allude to the next one in my presentation now, which will hopefully make my comments shorter on the next one, which I hope will please you. I wanted to start by introducing Wayne Bowl from Volusia Mall, who's here with me, and Alejandro Garcia Castro, who's here from Huey Design, who's our sign consultant. This is a relatively familiar subject to this planning board. You know, we've had several of these comprehensive sign plans in front of you, as well as amendments to the Land Development Code that deal with comprehensive sign planning and electronic message center signs, which is the two subjects that this amendment deals with. I want to take a minute, though, and talk about CBL in the mall before I talk about the signs, if you don't mind. What I passed out to you is just a little bit of background information about CBL. I think a lot of people don't know who own the mall or who they are, what else they own, and how important of a corporate citizen they are to us. So I thought I'd give you some background information on that. I think we spend a lot of time trying to bring new businesses to the community, and we probably don't spend enough time retaining and valuing the businesses we have, so I'm going to take a minute to do that. First of all, the current assessed value on Morgan Gilreath's website is over $66 million for the mall, which produces a tax bill of over $1.5 million a year. Pretty significant. They employ over 2,000 people, so a pretty significant employer in the community as well. I think you guys probably read in the newspaper that they're going through a pretty significant overhaul, facelift of the mall right now. It's about a 40-year-old property, and it's ready for it. It's gone through some periodic facelifts along the way for various components of it. But this is across the board. So about $5 million or more being spent on that endeavor, including about 100 construction jobs that you see on your sheet there. I'll also mention to you, and you'll see, I'm not going to go sheet by sheet, but there's a little bit about the company on the first sheet there. They're from Chattanooga, Tennessee. It's a real estate investment trust, publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange, one of the biggest mall-owned REITs in the country. They've got about 150 properties, a few of which I'll mention, one of which is Hammock Landings, which is in West Melbourne. 750,000 square feet. Pavilion in Port Orange, which some of you may have visited, which is more of a lifestyle center style mall, which is about 550 square feet, 50,000 square feet, and Cobblestone Village up in Palm Coast, which is about 100,000 square feet. So they've got a significant presence in Volusia County and surrounding counties that I think, we should hold up as being valuable to us. They are also, and you may not be aware of this, are going through a landscaping upgrade at the mall. We're processing a site plan with your staff right now to redo the frontage along the mall, which, over the years, I think we talk about retaining the existing vegetation, and then we realize it wasn't so great after all, and that's kind of what you see there in front of the mall with all the old pine trees and such. So there's going to be some landscaping upgrading associated with the remodeling of the mall that we're processing the permitting for now. Also, you may have noticed there's a couple new restaurants out front of the mall that CBL owns, Bahama Breeze and the Olive Garden, which we processed a PUD through the planning board last year for. And we have in process, and you should have before you, I think, in the next 2 months or so, an amendment which includes a new Cheddar's restaurant in front of the mall. So we're real excited about that. So a lot of things happening about the mall, that I want you to know about. And as it relates to the signage, I think all I'll say on this item, as opposed to the next one, if you have any questions about the details of the plan, is this is something that CBL believes to be important to the success of the mall, the continued success. They're bringing money back to the community, putting it back into the mall, continuing to hire, 2,000 plus people at the mall, and it's been very successful. This mall is an extremely successful mall. If you hear Brian Leary give his talk about One Daytona, one of the first things he says is that's one of the best occupied malls in the country. So we're very proud of it, and I hope you'll support the request to amend the signage. I would point out to you this is very similar to what we did a few months ago for the Auto Mall, a mall of a different sort out on 95, and I think this will follow suit, I hope.
Okay.
Any questions?
Thank you. Are there any questions of the applicant?
Yeah. How many other areas are there that along International Speedway Boulevard that would, there's 35 acres?
I don't think any. Dennis, you can speak to it.
So this would be the only one coming forward?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's correct. We did our GIS professional did some mapping of the area, and there are no sites greater than 35 acres along ISB retail.
One other question to it. The way this reads, Bob, page 1, is this saying that the request would have the ability of retail centers exceeding 35 acres to seek approval of a CSP from the City Commission? In other words, if there were another one, it wouldn't come before the planning board, it would go right to the City Commission. Is that what you're asking?
No, I don't think that's the case at all. Dennis,
If there was another CSP that came forward?
Yes.
A CSP is required to go to the planning board and the city commission for approval. So if there is another CSP that's coming forward.
He's pointing out it doesn't say planning board. It just says
no,
city
it does.
commission.
It does come to the planning board and city commission.
But it doesn't say it though.
It doesn't need to.
It does.
It doesn't need to say it in this section because it's already in section 6.21 of Article 18.
What about item number 7 in red that you have on, I don't see it, attachment B? That would be covered the same way?
Well, it says
Adding
the city's approval.
Okay.
Yeah. So the process for
I just didn't
approving.
want to cut out people having an opportunity for
Yeah,
something.
we fully intended it to come to the planning board, like all the rest of the CSPs. And the one, frankly, it's before you tonight, that's the next item on the agenda.
Right.
In fact, Mr. Moore, if you want to look at attachment C, it shows the existing section 6.21, and then subsection E, the last section of the last provision there provides for planning board and city commission review. That wouldn't be revised by this.
Right. Thanks.
Okay.
Any other questions of the applicant? Thank you very much.
Thanks.
And would anybody in the audience like to speak in favor of this issue? Would anybody like to speak against? Board?
Make a motion to approve Land Development Code text amendment DUD 2014-56 EMCs at retail centers along ISB.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. coming for approval.